What's up, Chaos Shinobi here. This is What If Naruto Was Half Uchiha and Half Senju. Summary: a dying Madara decides that he is going to have a successor. Naruto Namikaze. Infused with the DNA of both Madara and Hashirama, can Naruto rise to the challenge and surpass his forefathers, or is he doomed to forever follow in their shadows? Let's begin. Chapter 8. Team 8 continued on walking straight ahead, acting as normal as they could possibly manage. They continued on walking until they were stopped by the two men who were standing in the middle of the road. Kurenai had moved so that she was walking slightly ahead of her team. "Can I help you?" Kurenai asked, looking directly at the two men. Both were wearing slashed Kumo headbands. Missing Nin, Kurenai thought to herself. Of course you can. How about you and that little princess there? Follow us and we might think about letting the other two go alive. One of the men leered at Kurenai. She looked at him, taking what details she could about what appeared to be the leader. He had dark black hair hung limply on his head, and appeared unkempt. He had mud-colored brown eyes, a short but heavily built body that was made for combat and had the scars to prove it. He was wearing a tight black fishnet that showed off his heavily scarred body, with brown cargo shorts that stopped at mid-calf, and normal dark blue, shinobi shoes. If there was one thing that Kurenai hated more than perverts, it was rapists, and by the looks of lust in these men's eyes as they seized her up, it was obvious what their intentions were. She held back the angry sneer that was threatening to slither across her ruby-painted lips. She reached down to her pouch that was tied around her tight, and pulled out a kunai, and her students did the same. Suddenly, 6 other men appeared from the bushes surrounding them. A look of shock appeared in her eyes. We can't have you fighting back now, can we? After all, you might hurt yourself. The same man spoke again, shaking his finger in a mocking gesture as a lecherous grin spread across his face, the same look that was on all of their faces. So how about you give up, and we can all get what we want? He gestured with his bandaged covered hand to his friends. Kurenai just smirked. How about we not? With that, Kurenai disappeared into nothingness, with the images of her Chunin team doing the same. Body stop technique. Much to the men's shock, multiple Kurenais appeared behind each of them like a solid ghost, gripping the back of their necks with one arm. They each felt their bodies freeze. They couldn't move at all, no matter how hard they tried. To make matters worse, they heard a buzzing sound like those made by bees. They saw a black cloud of insects swarm them, surrounding them and draining their chakra. From their hiding spot, Naruto looked at Shino, waiting for him to give the signal. Shino nodded his head, and that was all the confirmation he needed. Flashing through a few hand seals, he took a deep breath and, fire style, dragon fire jutsu from his mouth, he blew out a large stream fire that came out much like a flamethrower. The fire hit the target and loud screams of pain could be heard as the men were burned alive. The smell of burning flesh hit their nostrils, and all of them almost threw up. In fact, when the smoke cleared, revealing the smoking and badly burnt bodies of the dead men, Hinata was the first to throw up. Naruto looked at the men he had killed with a tint of guilt in his eyes. However, he had already killed before, so he didn't feel as guilty as most people would feel for their first kill. Naruto, Kurenai said worriedly. She hated that she had to force her Chunin into killing. She was also worried about how he would react to his first kill. "I'm fine, I have already killed before," he responded in a monotone voice. Kurenai felt like a ton of bricks hit her on the head. How could she forget? The incident that happened 6 years ago, it was the talk of the entire village for over a month. All about how someone had broken into the old Namikaze house, and how Naruto had been forced to kill 2 Anbu-looking men. At first she had been skeptical about the whole thing. Seriously, how could a 6-year-old kid kill 2 fully trained Anbu? It wasn't until the Hokage had confirmed the story and her best friend Hana, who had been a part of the tracker team to investigate the scene, had told her face to face that it was true. "Now you've gone and done it," a gruff voice said behind them. They all looked over at where the voice had come from, and to their shock found 3 men standing there, their skin slightly pink from the intense heat of the fire. "How?" Kurenai asked in surprise, since she had been so sure they had gotten them all. The 3 men just smirked in response. "I will tell you when we are alone." Kurenai looked at the 3 men in front of her, 2 Jonin level and 1 Chunin. She hated what she was about to ask her Chunin to do, but she had no choice. "Naruto, you take the guy on the left, Shino and Hinata team up and take the one in the back, and I'll take Loudmouth if here." Shino and Hinata looked at Kurenai with surprise. There were 2 Jonins and 1 Chunin left, and she had just instructed a lone Chunin to go against a Jonin level missing Nin. "Sensei, I don't think it is wise for Naruto to go against him alone," Shino spoke up, trying to save his friend from what he could see was a very dangerous battle, one that he would not win. Kurenai bit her lip. She had seen Naruto going all out and knew he was powerful, but that was a mock battle. Even though Kushina was barely holding back, he is her son, so she was sure at some point she might have pulled some punches. This however was a Jonin level missing ninja. He wasn't going to hold back, he was going to be attacking with the intent to kill. The problem was, Naruto was the only one skilled enough to face one of the ninja alone. She couldn't take on two Jonin level ninja once, so her best plan at the moment was for her to finish her battle as quickly as she could and then go help him put out. She looked at Naruto through the corner of her eyes and could see his Sharingan spinning madly in preparation for the battle. "We have no choice, Naruto. Do you think you could keep him preoccupied long enough for me to finish my battle?" Naruto nodded his head. "If you're done rumbling to each other, can we get this show on the road?" The same man spoke up again, this time in annoyance. "Okay then team, you know what to do." They all nodded their heads. Shino's colony of insects slowly crawled out from his raised arms, and out from under the sleeve of his coat, taking to the air. Hinata had her Byakugan activated and was standing in Hyuga Juken stance. Naruto had a kunai held in reverse grip in his right hand. His hood was off, showing his wild untamed red hair, and his Sharingan spinning madly. "Hi!" Shino and Hinata vs Chunin level Kumo missing ninja. Shino and Hinata stared at their opponent, seizing him up. From what they could tell, the man was in his late 20s. He had short and choppily cut dull white hair that barely reached his shoulders. He had dark green forest-colored eyes and pale white skin that almost matched Hinata's. He was wearing a tight-fitting dull black shirt with baggy, torn green shorts that were ripped just below the knees. His slashed forehead protector was tied on his bandaged left arm. "Fighting against the two Denins, I feel insulted," he said, throwing several kunai at them. They both easily avoided the kunai, but to their shock the kunai all had explosive notes tied to them. When the kunai exploded, both Shino and Hinata had been forced to use a substation to get away from the blast radius. When they appeared from the smoke unharmed, the man sneered and took out a kunai and attacked Shino head-on. Shino retaliated by doing the same and fought with the man. The area they were in was filled with the sounds of clashing of metal, and the sight several sparks that arched through the air each time kunai met kunai. Shino was being pushed back by his opponent. He was not very good with head-to-head combat, and the man he was fighting against was taking advantage of that. In a display pure of speed, he disappeared from Shino's view and reappeared behind him. "Shino!" Hinata tried to warn him, but it was already too late. The man stabbed Shino in his back with a kunai. However, Shino dissolved into 1,000 insects. The insects swarmed the man, covering him from head to toe. Hinata rushed at the captured man with her Byakugan active. The moment the insects departed from the now much weakened man, she attacked. She gathered chakra to her hand, making it glow blue momentarily, and quickly thrust her palm at his chest. To the naked eye, it looked like all she had done was hit the man with her palm and sent him flying. To those with the dojutsu, however, with prior knowledge of the Hyuga fighting techniques, would tell you otherwise. The chakra in her palm had been sent directly into the man's chest, severing several of his arteries and tendons. He died instantly and painfully. Not realizing what she had actually done, she ran to where she could see her teammate was. She found him leaning on a tree with his back turned against it, and he was breathing heavily. "Are hurt, Shino?" she asked. She had seen the kunai stab him before he had substituted with a clone of his insects. "The kunai did not injure me greatly, however it seems that it was laced with poison. My insects are trying to purge the poison, but I don't think." From behind his glasses his eyes rolled to the back of his head, and he collapsed, unconscious. "Shino!" Hinata screamed out, eyes wide in fear. "With Naruto a few minutes earlier." "A Sharingan user? Haven't fought one those in quite some time," his opponent commented. Naruto ignored him and readied himself. "A silent type, huh? We will soon change that." The man disappeared in a burst of speed and appeared in front of Naruto with his fist buried in his stomach. He smirked, assuming he had finished his battle quickly and effortlessly. His eyes widened slightly when the Naruto he hit crumbled to dust, revealing itself to have been an Earth clone. He looked around the area to find his target. When he looked up, he saw Naruto in midair, blowing out a huge fire dragon. Flashing through a few hand seals, he shouted, "Water style, water cannon jutsu." From out of his mouth he spat out a powerful beam of water that easily tore through the fire attack and hit an unsuspecting Naruto, who was still in midair, head-on. Naruto used his hands as a shield to block some of the force of the attack, but the attack was still strong enough that it sent him flying away and managed to break a few of his ribs. He crashed harshly on the hard and unforgiving, creating spider-web-like cracks on the ground. Sitting up, he put his hands on his broken ribs and his hands started to glow green. A few seconds later he had completely healed his ribs, so it was as if they had never been broken. At that moment he was thankful for learning a few medic jutsu from his botchan. They had all been pleasantly surprised to learn that even though he had a large chakra reserves, his control over it was near perfect. Whether it was from his Senju DNA or the constant use of his Sharingan that had improved his chakra control to where it was, he was not certain, But hey, he was not complaining. His grandmother had happily taught him a few medic ninjutsu, though because of how complex and hard it was to learn them, he had not learned a lot, just enough to heal a few fractures and minor broken bones and stop some bleeding. Naruto silently cursed. Of all the opponents he had to face against, it had to be the one who used water. What was a water-type Jonin doing in Kumo anyways, and didn't Kumo specialize in lighting-style ninjutsu and kenjutsu? He ran it in his mind. At that moment, he slightly regretted having focused so much on fire-style jutsu. He had a few water and earth jutsu, but no 33 ni of them were strong enough to overpower his opponent. He made a silent promise to learn some more earth and water jutsu when he got home. After all, he could easily convince his grandmother to allow him to access the Senju library. That was, of course, if he got out of this battle alive. He jumped away just in time to avoid several kunai hitting the very spot he had been standing on. He looked at where the kunai had come from, and saw that his opponent was looking down at him from the tree he was standing on, with a smug look on his face. "I'm surprised you survived that attack," his opponent growled darkly with a murderous glint in his eyes. "Let me rectify that." Water style, giant water dragon. Water style, giant water dragon. They both shouted at the same time, spitting out large globs of water that transformed into giant dragons with snake-like body structures, and yellow glowing eyes. The dragons met in the middle of the space between the two ninja and upon impact exploded, creating a large wave of water that sent both ninjas floating away. Naruto deflected a kunai coming at him with his own, and not giving him any time to recuperate, the Jonin attacked him head-on. Naruto blocked every strike the Jonin sent his way with slight difficulty. True, his Sharingan could predict each and every attack, but the Jonin was faster than him, making it harder for him to defend himself. Seeing as the Jonin was gaining an edge with each passing moment, he jumped away from the head-on assault and going through a few hand seals, spoke. Fire style, great dragon fire. He blew out several dragon-headed fireballs, all aimed at his opponent. He heard Hinata scream out in terrified concern. "Shino." He looked over to where her voice had come from in worry, and that distraction cost him dearly. The fire jutsu hit the water-covered ground and vaporized into mist, and the Jonin appeared above him, his mouth bloated and hands on a seal. When trying to move, he found he couldn't. He looked down and saw chains made from water binding his feet to the ground. Water style, water cannon. Just to the Jonin chanted in his head, and spat out a powerful beam of boiling lava hot water straight at the restrained and struggling Naruto. With his Sharingan, Naruto could see that the attack was significantly more powerful than the missing nin had used before. Due to the large amounts of chakra that was used in the jutsu, and from the steam rolling off of it, he didn't think he could survive it. He didn't have a fire just as strong that was strong enough to vaporize the water cannon jutsu, and there was not enough time for him to cast any jutsu. "No!" he shouted, in desperation, his head turning to the side with his eyes shut tightly. He raised his arms up in a defensive cross formation. For a few seconds nothing happened, then he heard a loud explosion, like steaming water hitting something solid. He waited for a few more seconds, and still he did hear anything. Nor did he feel any oncoming attack or any pain. Tentatively he opened his eyes and was surprised to find himself surrounded by wood in a what appeared to be a wood-like cocoon, that stretched around him while leaving the back open. Think of the cocoon-like wall that Yamato used to block the shockwaves from the battle against four-tailed Naruto and Orochimaru. The Jonin softly landed on the ground, with a smug look on his face as he looked at where his attack had hit. The area was covered in steam from the boiling water. He was sure the battle was over. He had to give credit where it was due though, the kid he fought was very good. For someone his age to go against him, and actually hold out this long on his own, that had been, in the end, he was a Jonin with more battle experience than him. He was about to head to where he had heard that scream come from. After all, he still had a job to do. However, before he could, he was attacked. He jumped away just in time to avoid large wooden branches that burst out from the ground where he had been standing. What?" he asked out in surprise, shocked at being attacked by wood. As far as he knew, wood-style ninjutsu was only ever used in history by one person and one person alone, the first Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. He looked around trying to find who had sent the attack. "Come out!" he shouted after not finding anyone. He jumped again as more wooden branches burst from the ground, only this time the branches and the roots of the trees chased after a ghost Naruto appeared standing a few feet away from the Jonin. "Why you?" he stuttered out, taking a step back. What he did not see, however, was the large tree behind him until it was too late. Roots and branches from the tree grabbed him, wrapping tightly around his body, binding him to the tree so he could not move. Naruto approached the man and in one swift move, stabbed him in his chest right where his heart was, killing him instantly. When the man was dead, Naruto dropped to the ground on his knees panting hard. Willing those branches and roots into attacking, without ever having done before, especially without having any kind of training whatsoever, had drained his chakra to near exhaustion. He slowly rose to his feet, using the trees for support as he walked to his teammates. The trees that had burst out during his fight with the Chunin, aiding him immensely, slowly sank back into the ground, and the branches holding the now dead man returned to their rightful position. He never noticed a plant-like figure sinking into the ground with a single yellow eye looking at him. Leader Sama will be interested in this. Naruto arrived where his teammates were, that was not at all far from where his battle had taken just place. He saw Hinata crouched on the ground, hovering protectively over Shino, who lay unconscious and motionless. Thinking the worst, he quickened his paces, straining his sore and highly exhausted body. "What's wrong with him?" he asked Hinata, startling the poor girl. Disliking the feeling of being so weak, he took a small bottle with several red pills in it out of his pocket. Taking one of them, he felt his chakra being replenished. He's been poisoned. Without a moment to waste, Naruto took out another bottle from his pocket, that was filled with yellow pills. He took out a single pill and opened Shino's mouth and placed it on his tongue. He slowly tilted Shino's head upwards, and using his other hand he stroked down Shino's throat gently. These actions had the effect of causing the unconscious Shino to instinctively swallow the pill. Hinata, who had been silent throughout the whole process, spoke up when he was done. "What did you give him?" "It is a special pill that my grandmother made. She gave them to us when we graduated from the academy. The pills stop any infections or poison from spreading within the body or bloodstream. However, they only last for about 5 hours before they completely stop working," he explained, putting the pills back in his pocket. "We have to get him to a hospital soon. Hinata, can you use your Byakugan and tell me whether Sensei is done or if she is still fighting that missing nin?" "Sensei is right here," Kurenai said, appearing behind them. "Is everyone alright?" she asked, already automatically checking Shino. The two Junins nodded their head. "Shino has been poisoned. I have given him some medication to stop the poison from spreading, but it will wear off soon," Naruto told Kurenai. She nodded her head and inwardly cursed that her Junon was in a life-threatening situation on his first real mission. "Are you two uninjured enough to travel?" Kurenai asked. Hinata had not done much fighting, and had not suffered any serious life-threatening injuries, so she was okay. Naruto, though, had fought a full-on battle with a Jonin, and had it not been for the chakra pill he had taken, he would have dropped down on the ground in exhaustion. They both nodded their heads. Kurenai took Shino into her arms, carrying him bridal style. "We will move as fast as we can back to Konoha and will take breaks on the way, as they are needed. However, our first priority is to get Shino back to Konoha as fast as we possibly can," Kurenai said seriously. With that, teammate rushed towards Konoha as fast as they could, to save their teammate / best friend / student's life. "Arg, I'm so bored right now. Why doesn't anything exciting ever happen?" Kotetsu groaned out, banging his head on the little gate post he was sighted on. "I don't see why you're complaining. You're the one who suggested we guard the gate in the first place. It will be easy, Izumo. We'll get paid for doing nothing. That's what you said, right?" Izumo responded with a frown on his face. He too was bored. "Well, you didn't have to agree with me," Kotetsu shouted back, embarrassed about choosing to guard the gates. "You said it would be easy money," Izumo shouted back, standing up from his post and glaring at his best friend, who stood up and started glaring back. Someone said, drawing their attention. They both looked at the direction of the voice and saw a slightly beaten up Kurenai holding Shino in her arms. Her other two Junins standing behind her. They both noticed that Naruto's cloths were torn and there was a large hole on his stomach, which was showing his skin. They were both surprised to find that Hinata had damage on her form and only looked to be tired. "Oh, you may pass." Kurenai nodded her head and continued running into the village towards the hospital, her two Junins following behind. "What do you think happened to them?" Izumo asked after the team was out of their sight. Shrugging his shoulder, "I don't know. Whatever it was, it must have been bad to put them in that kind of state," Kotetsu responded, and Izumo nodded his head. They were both silent for a while before. "I'm bored," Kotetsu whined. "Shut up, Kotetsu, you're the one who chose this job," Izumo said in annoyance. "It's your fault for agreeing with me in the first place," Kotetsu responded, standing up again. And the cycle continues. A few hours later, after dropping Shino to the hospital, Kurenai had left her team to go and give the Hokage a mission briefing, though not before she had them that she was giving the team 2 weeks off. Naruto walked towards the Senju house with a solemn look on his face, his thoughts going back to the mission they had just completed. The mission, a simple delivery mission, turned out to be a very dangerous one that almost cost them their lives. He clenched his fist tightly. His best friend had almost died on that mission. The thought made him halt for a second. He knew about the dangers and sacrifices of being a shinobi. His parents had made sure to make them understand that being a shinobi was not like most people thought it was about, that as a shinobi there were times when you will have to kill, watch your comrades die, assassinate innocent people, on all because of a mission. He had taken those words to heart, but after that close encounter with those missing nin had been a real eye-opener for him. His thoughts drifted to his own fight. Even though he had held his own and even won against a Chunin, he had lost. The battle showed him his weaknesses. He relied too much on his fire ninjutsu. True, he had a few water and earth style jutsu, they were too few. He had hardly put any effort into the earth and water affinities, something he would rectify soon. He remembered how he too almost died. Had he not used the Makuten jutsu to grow that shell-like wall, he would surely have been in the afterlife now. Makuten. He suddenly realized, he had used wood-style ninjutsu, the famous wood release that was used by the first Hokage, the ability that allowed said man to capture and tame all the Baijuo. He almost jumped in excitement. He had gained such a powerful ability, his strength would surely increase now, and it was inevitable. He couldn't wait to tell his family, especially his grandmother. She would be thrilled to know he could use the same ability that her grandfather had used, and to her it meant that the Senju blood was not going to die with just her but would also continue with Naruto and his children. He halted slightly. How was he going to train using the wood release? He didn't know how he had used it in the first place, nor did he know anyone alive who had it. It was just like his Sharingan. When he had awakened it, he had no clue how to use it. Even more embarrassing was that when he first awakened it, he didn't even know how to activate and shut it off. But at least back then he had the Uchiha library to help him. That's it. He shouted in his mind. Just like how he learned to control his Sharingan from the Uchiha library, he could also learn about the wood release from the Senju library. The first Hokage must have left some notes about his wood release just in case one of the Senju children was able to awaken it, and hopefully a few jutsu to go along with those notes. So now his goals were to first learn to use wood release and practice and improve his earth and water affinities. With that in mind, Naruto continued his walk home. Before he could do any of that, he first needed some rest. He had managed to hold it off so they could get to the village quickly, but he was exhausted. He had not recovered fully from his fight. His body was aching everywhere. He added some extra speed to his step, and the sooner he got home the sooner he could finally rest. With Hinata, much like Naruto, was walking towards her own house in deep thoughts, her mind constantly replaying the events that took place during the mission. She had never felt so useless in her life. Her teammates and sensei had all fought against their enemies, and she had barely done anything to help Shino against their own four. She bit her lip when she thought about Naruto, her teammate. He had single-handedly fought and won against a Jonin-level missing nin. And yet she had barely held her own against a Chunin-level nin with the help of Shino, and that's what riled her up. If Naruto had been able to win against Jonin and she had trouble fighting against a Chunin, what did that say about her strength? She knew he was strong, from his battle against their sensei. But now she could truly see how strong he was, and the gap between their strength was not one to laugh at. Right now she was the weakest in their team. She was the one holding them back, a burden for them to carry. She clenched her fist tight enough to almost draw blood. Not anymore, she spoke under her breath. From now henceforth, she swore, she become stronger. She would not become a burden anymore. She would walk alongside her teammates' side and not behind them. She would show them the true Hyuga Hinata. She started sprinting towards the Hyuga compound, with determination burning deep in her eyes. She had some training to do. 2 days later, his body no longer ached. His chakra was fully restored. All his muscles were healed. He had to tell the truth. He loved his Uzumaki and Senju genes. Not only did he have a large amount of chakra, near perfect control of that chakra, but his body's natural healing rate was second to his gene Shuriki sister. He walked towards the hospital with 2 people in mind. The hospital was near the Hokage Tower, which was close to the Senju compound, and so it didn't take long for him to arrive there. Even from afar he could see the very large building which easily towered over many of the other buildings in Konoha. He couldn't help but marvel at its size. The hospital, one of the most important buildings in the Leaf Village, responsible for saving and healing hundreds of injured people per day, and to think his grandmother run it all. He arrived at the straight footpath leading to the double doors leading inside the massive building. He entered the building and was immediately greeted by the smiling face of a nurse sited on the reception desk. "Hello, what can I do for you today?" she said with a warm smile on her face. Naruto smiled back slightly in response. "I'm here to see my teammate. He was brought here yesterday." "What's his name?" the kind nurse responded, taking out a file from under her desk. "Shino Aburame." Aburame-o. "Here he is," she exclaimed in success. "Says here he was brought in yesterday and was sent to the ER. He is currently in room 204 recovering. You can see him." "Thank you," Naruto responded, walking towards the room. "It's trouble at all? Would you like me to take you out, I mean to the room?" she said hurriedly with a pink tint in her cheek. Naruto simply raised an eyebrow at her behavior. "No thank you, I know the room," he said kindly, walking away. He had been at the hospital many times before, and he knew his way around. The nurse sighed dreamingly as she watched the young red-haired boy walking away. She had to admit, for such a young boy he was handsome with those deep beautiful blue eyes, Deep spiky red hair reaching his shoulder, perfect light tan skin, an angular face almost free of his baby fat. Judging by who his parents were, especially his father, she could only imagine how handsome he would become when he grew older. She wouldn't mind having a go with someone as handsome as him, regardless of their age difference. Too bad she had almost every single female in the Leaf Village to compete with. She sighed again, as she watched him disappear into the corner. A girl could only dream with that one. Naruto walked past the many doors of the hospital, some empty some not. He held back a shiver as he made to his destination. The way that nurse on the reception desk had been eyeing him had scared the red-haired boy. It reminded him too much of the way Ami and to a lesser extent Ina looked at him back during the academy. Those looks, the way their eyes lit up with excitement and what he could identify as lust. Whenever their eyes landed upon his form, he was sure if ever he were to drop his gourd around any of the females in Konoha, he would long since have lost his virginity. He saw the room where Shino was said to be in. Entering the room he found a sleeping Shino lying on the hospital bed. He was not at all surprised to see him wearing his black sunglasses. Aburame in their secrecy he scoffed slightly. Honestly he had not once ever seen his friend not wearing them, or any of his clansmen for that matter. Maybe he should ask Shino why they liked wearing black glasses so much. Putting his little mental observation for later he approached Shino and sat on the chair beside his bedside. He sat there as silence, not sure what to do or say. He started feeling awkward. He looked at Shino and could see his chest steadily rising up and falling down. He was connected to any machines indicating that he was not in any danger. The poison had been fully removed from his system. 10 minutes passed and Naruto had not moved his chair. He stood up from his chair and took out a little blue card from his pocket. He put the card on the window and walked out of the room. Tsunade sighed in exasperation as she glared at the mountain of paper on her desk. Had she known being the head medic Nin would have her sit behind a desk and do so much paperwork she would never had agreed in the first place. Looking at the large amount of documents still waiting to be read, signed and approved, she rubbed her temples. I need a break. Taking out a small golden key from her pocket, she walked towards the picture frame of her family that was on the wall. She removed the picture from the wall and behind it was a safe. She opened the safe using the key she had taken out from her pocket. This was where she kept a secret stash of her stress reliever. She smirked inwardly. Shizune may know where all her other secret hide sports were but not this one. She had made sure to hide it perfectly and made it inaccessible to anyone but her. She opened the safe and was rewarded with an empty safe, save for a neatly folded note. She snatched the note and read it. Drinking is not good for you, Tsunade-sama. Love, Shizune. A chibi smiling Shizune was drawn at the back of the ladder giving her a thumbs up. Tsunade started shaking, her eyes glowed with righteous fury. She raised her foot and swiftly brought it to the ground. The action shook the entire room and good portion of the building too. Crack marks appeared on the ground where she had stomped her foot. Shizune. When I get my hands on that little. Her angry murderous thoughts were stopped by someone knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Enter, she said, calming her a bit. She would sort out her little apprentice later. The door opened and in walked a red-haired boy that she instantly recognized. Naru-kun, she exclaimed happily, her anger forgotten by the sight of her grandson. She walked towards him and hugged him, burying the poor boy in her generous bosom. After an eternity, on Naruto's part, of hugging and smothering the poor boy, she finally let him go. When he had been freed from what he could only say as one of the most dangerous situations in his young life, only second to being trapped in a room full of fangirls, Naruto took a deep breath to replace the oxygen he had been deprived of seconds ago. He looked at his grandmother, who in all honesty didn't look like a grandmother at all. Considering her age, he wondered how she looked so young. He would have asked but he was not willing to risk making her angry. He had seen how she reacted when angered. His grandfather learning how to fly was proof of it. He straightened himself, unaware of the blush on his face, but unfortunately for him Tsunade noticed it. "All my little Naru-kun is blushing," she gasped, putting her hand on her mouth. "Don't tell me you have developed a crush on me. You know Naru-kun, incest is prohibited." She put a hand under her cheek and a thinking meaner bust. "Since you're so cute, I'll make an exception." To say Naruto was embarrassed would be an understatement. His face as red as his hair, he was stuttering words trying to defend him. Tsunade could only laugh at his failed attempts of denial her grandson was making. After having a good laugh and her mood dramatically improved, she decided to put him out of his misery. "Relax, I'm just joking, kid, you're a little too young for my taste." Naruto breathed out a sigh of relief, the blush on his face receding. Honestly, why did his grandmother and mother like to tease or rile him up as often as they could? It was like they enjoyed watching him get embarrassed or lose his cool, but that couldn't be it, could it? "Ba-san." Tsunade glared at him. I mean Ba-chan." He quickly corrected himself. Tsunade sat on her chair with and indicated for him to seat on the chair in front of her desk. "I don't think this is a social visit, is it?" Naruto inwardly sighed. Was he that readable? "No, I came here to ask you for something," he admitted. Tsunade narrowed raised an eyebrow. Oh? What is it? Naruto fidgeted in his seat. He felt like he was back at the Uchiha compound asking Fugaku for his permission to enter the clan library. He tried calming his increasing nervousness. This was his grandmother. She loved him, surely she would agree. May I? Can I? Could you? Getting annoyed. Spit it out, Tsunade said. Can you allow me to use the Senju library? He blurted out. Tsunade blinked. That was it? That was the reason why he was so nervous. All wanted to ask for was to use the library. It's not like there was anything important in it or anything. Unknown to Tsunade, she had been silent the whole time as she thought about the stupid reason for her grandson's behavior, and her silence was making said boy very nervous. Sure, you can use the library all you want, she said offhandedly. Naruto just sweat drop at that. Here he was having a mental breakdown, worried that she was going to refuse or worse explode on him, and she had just casually given him permission to the library without so much of a care whatsoever. Seeing the relived look on Naruto's face, Tsunade chuckled inwardly. Her grandson and only living blood relative was sure a weird one compared to his sisters. Unlike Hitomi and Hikari, who were both very loud, very open, and overly cheerful, Naruto was the odd man out. He was reserved, quiet, and rarely if ever spoke out loud. And truth be told, she was worried for him. She knew about how people treated him, the expectations that everyone had for him. She was worried that just like the Uchiha prodigy Itachi, he too would crumble under the pressure and do things that would haunt him for the rest of his life. She would often spy on him as he trained himself to the ground, wanting to get more powerful, to show his worth to everyone else. She wondered what would happen if he was to get that power. Would he become evil and abandon his family and friends, and become a power-hungry tyrant like her teammate, or worse, Madara? Or would he use that power to protect his loved ones and the village like her grandfather? With the influence of his family, his friend, she knew he would not fall to the dark side, or at least she hoped he would not. Her grandson was destined for great things. That much was certain, and was going to change the world, for better or for worse. Pushing her thoughts aside, she stood up slightly to pinch his cheek. You shouldn't overthink things so much, Naru-kun. You're going to give yourself a brain tumor one day. Naruto rubbed his now sore cheek and gave her an annoyed look. Says one of the smartest women in the village, Naruto responded back. Don't get cheeky with me, brat, Tsunade said, amused by his response. They were both silent after. Seeing as he was not leaving and the maintain of paperwork on her desk would only grow if not attended to. Is there something else you wanted? She asked finally. Something happened to me on the last mission that I had. Naruto began getting Tsunade's attention. She had heard from Minato about the mission that he was talking about. They had been on C-ranked mission when a group of missing nin had attacked. From what she had been told in the mission briefing she had read, Naruto had fought against one of the Jonins and had won. The scolding she had given Minato for allowing a group of inexperienced Shinin to a C-ranked mission after they had been a team for only 2 months, and to make it worse, her grandson was on that team. Of course, Minato had defended himself, saying that sooner or later Naruto was going to go on a higher ranking and that he was strong, that she agreed on. And going on higher-ranking missions would give him the experience he needed. She had calmed down after that and had stomped out of his office, threatening him that should her grandson or granddaughters be hurt in one of those missions he would be in a world of hurt. She knew that she was wrong. She couldn't protect them forever. Sooner or later they, much like she did long ago, would set go on their own missions and leave their own lives. But whilst she still could, she would be the overprotective grandmother. What happened to you? She asked with a hint of worry in her voice. When I fighting against the missing nin, he trapped me and was surely going to kill me with a powerful water jutsu until? Tsunade said, now on edge, her hands shaking slightly. He had almost died. When the jutsu was about to hit him, I closed my eyes and felt something block it. When I opened them I saw a wooden wall like cocoon blocking it. I then attacked him using roots and trees. In the end I caught him and bind him to a tree with roots and tree branched and killed him. Silence. Tsunade's mind shut down for a moment. She knew that there was a possibility that he would inherit her grandfather's wood release, but the possibility was so slim that she had all but forgotten about. Getting over her shock, she jumped out of chair and glommed Naruto, who yelped in surprise. Can you show me? She said after letting him go. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Well, you see, that's the problem. I don't know how I actually used it in the first place. It was a spur-in-the-moment thing. That's why I was actually asking you to use the Senju library in the first place. Well, that's not going to be much help. Naruto looked at her in confusion. The information in that library is the same as the one you'll find in the local library. Naruto physically deflated at that. How was he going to learn about wood release now? But there is a secret hidden room, and where I know you will defiantly find what you're looking for, she finished. Can you show it to me? Naruto said excitedly, his voice a little louder than it usually was. Tsunade looked at the paperwork on her desk, then at her hopeful cute grandson. Paperwork? Naruto. Paperwork? Definitely, Naruto. Let's go right now. I needed a break anyways, she said cheerfully, standing up from her desk. She walked up to Naruto, Grabbing his shoulder, they both disappeared in a swirl of leaves. They appeared at the Senju house. Naruto hunched forward, feeling a bit dizzy from the transportation. "Sorry, I forgot about that. You'll get used to it," Tsunade said, rubbing his back to relieve him of the vertigo he was feeling. The Sunshine was a fast-movement transportation that had the nasty effect of causing nausea because of the high speed that the body moved it. Most Jonins and Chunin usually get over the effects after constant use of the Sunshine. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." "That was disorienting," Naruto said, feeling the vertigo pass over. Tsunade gave him an apologetic look. "That's the Sunshine for you." Naruto nodded his head, wondering if he could learn it too someday. It seemed like an effective technique for traveling short distances. "Could you teach it to me?" Tsunade gave him an amused smile as she walked inside the house. She had expected him to ask. That was her grandson, always looking for ways to improve himself. "You'll find it at the local library. It's a D-rank technique." Naruto's eyes widened slightly in surprise but did not comment any further. He couldn't believe that such a technique was accessible to even academy students. To think if had learned that technique a long time ago, traveling to his little secret training ground would have been also much easier. He followed his grandmother in silence as she led him to the basement. She turned on the lights and what he saw surprised him, shelves upon shelves of scrolls and books. He actually gasped audibly. All this information was laterally under his feet the whole time, and not once had he ever bothered to check the basement. "Your sisters usually spend some time here learning a few jutsu. I'm surprised that you actually didn't know about this library." But why didn't you tell me?" "You never asked." Naruto sweet drop at that. Seriously, that was the best excuse she could come up with? "Enough gawking, you'll check the library some other time. Right now we still have something important we are looking for." Right. They walked past the many shelves to the back of the large underground library. Naruto raised an eyebrow when they stopped in front of a wall. He was again surprised when his grandmother started going through a few head seals. "Kai!" she shouted, slamming her hands on the ground, and to his astonishment, a complex seal matrix formed on the ground. Tsunade bit her thumb and pressed the bleeding thumb on the seals. The seals started to glow and the ground started to shake slightly. A horizontal square stone slowly slid away from the ground where the seals were, and behind a staircase leading deeper within the ground could be seen. Tsunade did not hesitate and descended down the stairs. She looked at a dumbstruck grandson. "Well, aren't you coming?" Naruto, shaking, nodded his head and with a hesitant step followed her. They did not walk for more than a few steps before coming to a dead end. The light from the library gave them a clear view of the steps and the dead-end wall. Naruto could see a keyhole that strangely enough looked like a. Tsunade took the necklace from around her neck and inserted it into the keyhole, and to his surprise it fit perfectly. Wall started shaking and started going, dropping to the ground, not before Tsunade had taken the crystal necklace back. Naruto blinked when he saw what was behind the wall. It was a small room with a table, a chair and a few scrolls neatly folded in a box under the table. It looked like a study. That sent red flags in his mind. Why would anyone go through so much trouble as to hide a study? This used to be first and on a later date the second Hokage's secret study. They used this room to have private meetings, and here Tsunade explained making some of the scrolls in that box were written by the first Hokage. They contain information in his wood release and how to control it. Naruto's almost fainted in shock. This very room was once used by the previous Hokages, and his grandmother was going to give him scrolls written by the first Hokage himself. His lips started trembling, whether from happiness or excitement he could not tell. He did something that Tsunade never expected him to do. He launched at her and gave her a hug and was actually laughing in excitement. Thank you, Bachan. I don't know what to say," he said happily, still hugging her. Tsunade patted him on top of his head. For once he actually did not mind the gesture. "Think nothing of it, brat. Besides, if I don't help my grandson to become strong, then how else is he going to attract a strong woman to give me many strong healthy grandchildren?" A small blush appeared on Naruto's face, which made Tsunade laugh lightly. "So what are you waiting for? That box is not going to pick itself." Naruto bent down and started to drag the box with scrolls in it. He pulled the box from under the table, saw something that grabbed his attention. Under the box a small handle. Curious, he pulled it open and saw a large scroll inside. Bachan, what is this?" he said after removing the rather large scroll and showing it to his grandmother. Tsunade looked at the scroll with a raised eyebrow and picked it up to get a closer look. On the side of the scroll she could something written on it, but it was covered by dust. Clearing the dust away, she saw a single word, eagle, written in kanji vertically. Her eyes lit up in recognition as she remembered what the scroll was. "Naru-kun, do you know what this is?" she said loudly, almost screaming. Naruto nearly jumped when he heard her yell. Honestly, having no idea what the giant scroll was, he shook his head. "This is a summoning contract, not just any contract, but the same summoning contract my grandfather used." I thought it had been lost all those years ago, but now, here it is." Naruto was certain his brain was going to explode sooner or later from the many surprises he had seen today. First there was an entire library under their house that everyone knew about except for him. Then his grandmother showed him a secret meeting room that was once used by the Hokages. Then his grandmother was giving him scrolls that were written by the first Hokage, and now he was looking at a summoning contract that was used by the first Hokage. He didn't even know that he had a summoning contract. Maybe he should activate his Sharingan to make sure that this was not a dream or some powerful genjutsu. After all, his brain could only take so much surprises in a day. Whilst Naruto was having a mental Tsunade was having one of her own. She was excited, ecstatic. She couldn't believe that she had found something important like this. This was a summoning contract that her grandfather had used. To her it was like she was a relic of her clan, something to show that her clan had not completely vanished. She had a few things to remind her of clan, her family. The necklace she had was one of the few things she had to remind her family. Their belongings had either been lost during the war, stolen or taken by the village. She could still remember the day when her father had one day offered her to sign the contract. Unfortunately by then she had already signed the slug contract. Father had been slightly disappointed, but the promise that his youngest son, her little brother, would sign the contract. However, things did not go as planned. She looked at the contract. She was defiantly never going to use it. She already had a summoning contract. Now what would she do with it? She looked at Naruto, who looked like he was in deep thought, and her eyes lit up. She may not have been able to sign it herself back then, but maybe her grandson would. She looked at him again. He was the only living Senju left who could do so. And he is a perfect candidate. Naru-chan, she said sweetly, bringing him back from his thoughts. Yes? How would you like to sign the eagle summoning contract? What? Me? Yes, you. Unless of course there is another Naru-chan here. Thank you, Bacha. I am truly grateful for what you have done for me today. Think nothing of it. Besides, you will pay me back later with many grandchildren, right? Right. Naruto drawled out. He took the summoning contract from her and placing it on the ground, he rolled it out and saw two names written on it. Senju Hashirama, Senju Keiji. Who's that? Naruto asked, reading the names written on the contract. Tsunade frowned as she looked at the names written on the scroll. Your great-great-grandfather, she sadly, as she looked at her father's name. Oh. Pushing the depressing emotions that were arising aside and putting on a smile on her face. All you have to do is to sing the contract by writing your name using your blood. Naruto nodded his head. He beat his thumb and wrote his name. In order to summon, you draw your blood from the hand which you sign the contract with. The type and size of summon you want to summon is determined by the amount of chakra you use. The more chakra you add, the bigger the summon will be. The hand seals are boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram, and then you say summoning jutsu and that's it. Naruto nodded his head, listening to his grandmother. Again, thank you, Bachan. After parting with his grandmother, walked to his secret training ground. Arriving at the training ground, the ground was now covered in small patches of green grass. He had long since filled the crater that was in the middle of the training ground. That fight with his mother had really done a number on his private training ground. Fortunately, the once blackened ground was now a healthy green. He unsealed the box with the scrolls inside and started looking through them. He looked through the scrolls and was pleased to find one that was written water manipulation on it. He placed the scroll aside for later use. He found another scroll written earth manipulation. Kami must be happy with me today, he said quietly. After all, he had promised to improve his earth and water manipulation, and today he just found scrolls on them. What were the odds? After searching through a few scrolls, he finally found it. It was a plain green scroll on the bottom of the box. He opened it and instantly his eyes lit up at what he saw. Wood releases a combination of water and earth-based chakra. In order for one to gain a good control of Makuten Ninjutsu, you must have good control over both your earth and water affinities. Naruto looked at the two scrolls on both water and earth manipulation and sighed. I guess there is no helping it. He closed the scroll he was reading and sealed it away. Water and earth manipulation it is. Chapter 9. Time skip. 3 months after previous chapter. Location, Hokage Building, Jonin Lounge. The Hokage stared silently at all the gathered Jonin with his eyebrow twitching. Could someone please fetch Kakashi? Tell him that if he isn't here within the next 10 seconds I'm going to demote him to Jonin for a month and ban the production and distribution of Icha Paradise in Fire Country, he said threateningly. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Yo, Kakashi said, appearing in the middle of the room. Minato just sighed and ignored his student's antics and continued with the reason why he was here in the first place. Taking in a small breath, as you may or may not know, the Chunin exams are approaching and this year they are being held in our village. If there are any Jonin sensei who thinks that their Junon team is ready to participate in the Chunin exam, step forward now. He looked around the room looking at the many Jonin sensei who all seemed to be having a mental debate with themselves. I, Hatake Kakashi, Jonin sensei of Team 7, would like to nominate my team for the Chunin exam. Several people started muttering to themselves. Ayuhi Kurenai, Jonin sensei of Team 8, would like to nominate my team for the Chunin exams, Kurenai said, stepping forward, standing beside Kakashi. Damn it, here I was hoping you guys wouldn't go for it. Sai Sarutobi Asuma, Jonin sensei of Team 10, would like to nominate my team for the Chunin exams, the lazy smoker said, he too stepping forward and standing beside Kurenai. Yosh, I, Mido Guy, the beautiful green beast of Konoha, would like to nominate my youthful students for the Chunin exams. A man who looked like an adult version of Lee shouted excitedly, giving everyone a thumbs up and a blinding smile. Beautiful in whose eyes was everyone's thought. I, Namikaze Kushina, Jonin sensei of M. Hitomi, would like to nominate my Junon for the Chunin exams, Kushina said, sheepishly rubbing the back of her head when she realized she only had one Junon in her team. Minato looked at the Jonin sensei in front of him and nodded his head in approval. Very well then, Team S7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 will be allowed to participate in the upcoming Chunin exams. Finally, having had enough, Iruka spoke his mind. Pardon my intrusion, Hokage-sama, but I do not think it is wise to allow those Genins to participate in the exams. They have only been Genins for only 6 to 7 months now. They are not ready to participate in something like the Chunin exams, he pleaded. He had taught all those students. To him they were like his little brothers and sisters, and he would be damned if he allowed them to get killed for participating in something they were clearly not ready for. You have to realize something, Iruka-san, Kakashi said seriously, looking at Iruka right in the eye. They may have been your students once, but they are now our Genins. We have trained them, taken them on missions, giving them the experience they need to survive the harsh realities of a ninja. You can't baby feed them forever, Iruka-san. They are our Genins now, meaning we know what is best for them. But, Kakashi is right, Iruka, you can't protect them forever. There are their Genins now, they know what is best for them, the Hokage said with a hint of finality in his voice. Iruka was silent after that, but everyone could clearly see the look of disapproval on his face. On a final note, since Hikari doesn't have a team to participate with and there aren't any open spots on any team, she will be allowed to choose which team to join for the duration of the exams. Naruto walked towards his private training ground in deep thought. Earlier today, Kurenai had told him that she had nominated them for the Chunin exams. That had made his day. The chance to become a Chunin was something he had honestly thought would not come until at least the following year. He couldn't help but smile a bit when he thought about the exams. It was an opportunity for him to test himself against other Genins from different parts of the elemental nations, and a chance to become Chunin, and becoming Chunin would have its many advantages, like taking higher ranking missions. So wrapped up in his thoughts, Naruto did not realize that he was walking into someone until it was too late. Hey, watch where you're going! A feminine voice shouted at him when he bumped into the person. Sorry about that. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going, he apologized, looking at the person he had bumped into. It was a girl who looked to be at least a year older than him. She was slightly taller than him by a few inches. She had long, straight, blonde hair that was bound with taut bandages and a deep dark onyx eyes. For her attire she wore a short-sleeved purple and black blouse, both of which had a design of clouds on them. The last thing he noticed about her was that she had a Kumo forehead protector. Whilst Naruto was looking at the girl from bottom to top, she too was also checking him out. She noticed that the boy she that had run into her had deep dark red hair that had a few spikes in it and created 2 small bangs on the side of his face. He had in all honesty the deepest shade of blue eyes she had ever laid eyes on. He was wearing a white hooded jersey, with a blue long-sleeve shirt inside. It's fine, no harm done, she said lightly, giving him a small smile. Again, sorry about that, Mrs. Yugito. Naruto, it was a pleasure to meet you, Yugito-san. I hope we will get the chance to meet again, but for now I have to be on my way, Naruto said, bowing slightly. Likewise, Naruto-san, Yugito responded with a small bow of her own, and the two continued on with their walk in separate direction. What do you think? Something about him doesn't feel right. Is he strong? From what his chakra felt like, I would say he is very strong, not to mention handsome as well. A perfect match made for you, kitten. Nimby, I am in no mood for your perverted rumblings right now. I can see it now. You kidnapping that god of a man and taking off. Nimby exclamation mark dot dot dot, stupid perverted cat. And ride him, doctor. Nimby. That's it, I'm cutting off the contention. No wait. Yugito sighed tiredly. Dealing with Nimby was even worse than dealing with her sensei. She continued on walking till she reached a large hotel. Entering the hotel, she found her teammates lounging on the couch. How was the walk? A blonde-haired girl with a bust that shouldn't belong to a girl her age asked. It was refreshing, Yugito answered truthfully. Konoha was very different from Kumo. There were many trees and the most people she saw were civilians, and there was a sense of happiness in the village. Unlike her village where the most things you could find were rocks and mountains, The majority of people there are ninja and very few civilians. Find anything interesting? Samui asked, her face remaining blank as ever. She gave her friend a teasing smile. You could say that. The following morning with Teammate walked into the academy building and were all surprised to find a large group of people shouting at two people who were blocking the door to the room where they were supposed to be in. Genjutsu Naruto noticed instantly looking at the door number. It was written 209 and he knew from past experience that this was the second floor and the real room 209 was on the third floor. Should we do something? Shino asked when he saw a Leaf Shinon wearing a green jumpsuit get punched in the face for trying to enter the fake room. No, they are using the genjutsu to weed out weak teams. If we were to tell everyone, it would only give us a bigger competition later on, Naruto explained, walking towards the staircase, avoiding being seen by everyone. You might as well drop that fake genjutsu, you're not fooling anyone, a loud arrogant voice shouted, drawing everyone's attention. Idiot, Naruto thought to himself, turning around to see who was dumb enough to shout that out for everyone to hear. He was not all that surprised to see Team 7 standing there with Kiba in front giving everyone an arrogant smirk. So you noticed, huh? One of the teens who was standing on the door said before he too smirked and disappeared in a burst of speed, reappearing a second later in front of Kiba with his foot raised in a kicking motion. A kick which never reached its intended target. That doesn't mean I'll let you pass! What? He said in shock when he saw a hand holding his foot, a hand belonging to the same kid wearing the green jumpsuit. I didn't even see him move, he thought. Lee, what happened to being subtle? A girl with brown hair tied into two buns. She was also wearing a pink sleeveless blouse with red sleeve trimmings and yellow fastening buttons as well as dark green pants, asked from behind. I'm sorry Tenten, but I could not allow him to hurt a fellow Leaf comrade. The now named Lee said, giving her large smile. Idiot, you've gone and blown our cover, she said in annoyance, punching him on top of the head. A second later Lee was standing up seemingly unhurt from the punch he had received from his teammate. The moment he saw Sakura his eyes lit up and in the blink of an eye he was standing in front of her. Hi, I am Konoha's upcoming beautiful green beast Rock Lee, please go out with me. I'll protect you with my life. He shouted passionately, holding a horrified Sakura's hand. EWWW. Are those real? Get away from me, she shrieked, indicating at his rather large, thick eyebrows, and removed her head from his as though she had been touching lava. But Lee stuttered, his heart broken. He looked down and started shaking with his hair covering his face, making everyone, especially Sakura, worried. When he looked back up again his eyes were shining with determination and his fist was clenched and raised high in the air. I promise from this day forward that I will get Sakura's heart, and if I cannot I will do 1,000 push-up. And if I fail to do that I will do 2,000 push-ups with one hand. And if he was cut off from his insane promises that otherwise would be considered impossible by normal human standards, by his Tenten hitting him in the head again. We get it, okay? Sheesh, sometimes I think you're worse that guy sensei. Naruto. Hikari suddenly shouted after noticing her brother who was standing near the staircase looking back at her team. Hikari-chan, I'm glad to see you here. I was worried that you would chicken out and not show up, Naruto mocked playfully, getting a glare and a mock punch from his sister. As if I'd miss the chance to kick your butt and become Chunin before either you or Hitomi can, Hikari responded back with a slight smirk on her face. A smirk which Naruto returned. Are you Naruto Namikaze? Lee asked, appearing in front of Naruto. Naruto gave him a hesitant nod, uncomfortable with how close Lee was to his face. I've heard from my sensei that you're a prodigy and a genius. I challenge you to a fight. Naruto looked at Lee as though he had just grown a second head. I don't think there is enough time for that. Maybe during the exams we will get the chance to do so, he refused politely. Yosh. Then I shall wait until then, Naruto-kun. Lee exclaimed happily in a nice guy pose. Come on, we have to go the second floor. The exams should be starting soon, Shino said, speaking for the first time. Everyone nodded at that and walked up the stairs. Hey Naruto, Hikari, Hinata, Sakura, over here, someone shouted at the group of Junins the moment they arrived on the second floor. Curiously they all looked the person who had called them and found one Hitomi Namikaze standing in front of a door waving at them. Beside her was Kushina, Kakashi, and Kurenai. Sensei? Sakura was the one to ask. In response Kakashi lazily waved at her. I see all my cute little Junon made it after all, Kakashi said cheery, giving his team his famous eye smile. That look was immediately broken by a fist to the head courtesy of an angry fuming Kushina. Don't say it like that, hentai, she shouted at Kakashi, who lay on the ground twitching every now and then. Kurenai coughed loudly, drawing everyone's attention. We came here to make sure that everyone in your respective teams attended the exams willingly. Had one person not shown up we would have sent your team home. But since you're all here, I would like to say good luck on the exams and do your best, she said, going straight to the point. Seeing as her fellow Jonin sensei were too busy fooling around. Kurenai-sensei? Hikari said lowly, breaking the silence that had settled in. Raising a delicate eyebrow, Kurenai responded yes. What about Hitomi-chan? She doesn't have a team, Does that mean she can't participate in the exams? She asked, giving her sister, who was now standing next to her, a worried look. Since Hitomi doesn't have team like you said, Hokage-sama has given her the choice of joining any one team she chooses for the duration of the exams. Does that mean I get to choose which team I want to join? Hitomi asked hopefully, to which Kurenai nodded her head. She was immediately about to choose Team 7, after all that was the team where her sister and best friend were in, but then she saw her brother and remembered that her brother was in Team 8 and her other best friend, Hinata, was also in Team 8. She bit her lip. She was at a crossroads. On one hand, if she chose Team 7 she would hurt her brother and best friend's feeling for choosing Team 7 over them, and if she chose Team 8 the same thing would happen to Hikari and Sakura. As though reading her mind, her brother gave her a confident nod and looked at Hikari. She instantly understood what he was telling her. He was telling her to join Team 7. She gave him a grateful smile and with a confident tone she chose which team to join. I would like to join Team 7 then. Then it's settled. Hitomi will join Team 7 for the duration of the exams, and with that Kurenai vanished in a leaf sunshine, though not before she gave her team a wave and a look that said, I believe in you. Seeing as my work here is done, I'll be off. Yanni Kakashi said, now healed from his injuries he had received from Kushina. He too disappeared in a leaf sunshine. Upon his leave Kushina grumbled lowly, like he actually did anything. That lazy bum. She then turned to the Genins and gave them all a large beaming smile. Good luck and make sure you kick everybody's asses. I'll be cheering for you all. She cheered loudly, driving her fist in the air, receiving a cry of yeah from Hitomi and Hikari in response to her little speech. Everyone else though sweat drop at their antics. Sigh, I can't believe I'm related to them. Look out for each other, okay? Hitomi-chan, Hikari-chan, Naru-chan, she said, finally kissing her children on their foreheads, much to their embarrassment. After she had left, Kiba started laughing. Naru-chan, he said, laughing loudly. He blinked when he saw the world around him start to darken and the only person he could see was Naruto, who was glaring heatedly at him. What was that? Naruto asked, and for a second Kiba swore he saw the outline of a white figure wearing a white robe with a sword in his mouth appear behind Naruto. He gulped. His legs started shaking and northing. I didn't say anything. Naruto gave him one last glare that almost made his heart stop. Thought so. The world turned back to normal. What are you waiting for, idiot? We are going to be late, Sakura shouted at him. Kiba looked around and saw that everyone had already entered the door whilst he was still standing at the same spot he had been standing since he had arrived on this floor. You don't have to yell so loud, damn it. I can hear you just fine, he shouted back at Sakura as he rubbed his sore ears. Sakura just huffed and walked inside. Entering the room, the two teams were instantly subjected to a small amount of ki from almost person who was already in the hallway. Naruto just scoffed at the pathetic attempt of intimidation. He had felt worse, far worse. Naruto-kun, a feminine voice shouted, and before the red-haired boy could act, he was glommed by a girl with long platinum blonde hair. A girl he had hoped not to meet during the exam. Hello to you too, Ino-san, he said, not bothering to remove the girl from the death grip she had on his arm. It was futile to try and remove her when she had gotten her hands on any part of his body. Nothing save perhaps the world ending could make her let go. Even then he doubted she would let go. Troublesome. It seems all the rookies are here, a lazy voice said in front of him, a voice he recognized belonging to Shikamaru, and to the lazy boy's side was Choji munching away on a bag of snacks. Shikamaru, you lazy bum, I didn't think you of all people who show up, Kiba said. Believe me, I wouldn't have showed up if someone hadn't blackmailed me into coming, he said, sending a glare towards Ino, who stuck her tongue out at him. Troublesome. So then all the rookies are here. This is so awesome, Kiba said excitedly, his dog barking loudly agreeing with him. You rookies are making a scene. Look, everyone is staring at you, a new voice said from behind the group of Genins. And who are you? Kiba asked rudely at the teen, who looked around 17 years old, wearing spectacles. He had onyx eyes and ash-gray hair that was tied in a ponytail and extends to his upper back, with bangs framing either side of his forehead. My name is Yakushi Kabuto, the teen said, giving them all a cocky smile, a smile that put some of them on edge, mainly Shikamaru and Naruto. Is this your second time participating in the exams, Kabuto-san? Sakura asked curiously. Kabuto gave her a smile and pushed his glass up with a single figure. No, this is my 7th attempt. 7th? Man, you must really suck, Kiba laughed, getting a punch in the head from Hikari and Sakura. Kabuto waved his insult off, unfazed by it. He's right, but don't be fooled, these exams are not as easy as they seem. Hey, since we are all Leaf Nin, how about I help you rookies out, he suggested as he took out a deck of cards from his pockets. These are chakra cards. On these cards I have information on every active ninja around now that got everyone's attention. Anyone? Shikamaru asked curiously. Kabuto smirked confidently and took out a blank card. As long as their names are on my cards, then I have all the information on them. What can you tell me about Namikaze, Naruto? Shikamaru asked. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Shikamaru, Ino shouted at her teammate. Do you have any information on Rock Lee and Yugito? This time it was Naruto who asked, ignoring the shocked looks he was getting from everyone. He was curious about the Kumo kunoichi he had met the previous day. There was something about her that made several alarm bells in head ring, and as for Lee, Head was curious as to how the bushy-eyed eyebrows boy had managed to move that fast. Namikaze Naruto. He is a part of Team 8 under Yuhi Kurenai. He has completed 34 D-ranked mission and 1 C-ranked. Taijutsu is average. High Genjutsu and Wow Ninjutsu is off the charts. He put the card back to the deck of cards and took out another one with a picture of Lee on the cover. Rock Lee. He is a member of Team 9 under Mitogai. He has completed 87 D-ranked missions and 7 C-ranked missions. He paused. This makes no sense. It says here he has no affinity for Genjutsu or Ninjutsu. His Taijutsu is unbelievable, though everyone was shocked. A person who couldn't do any Genjutsu or Taijutsu? How was he even a ninja? And last but certainly not least, Yugito. She is a member of Team Karibi under the leadership of Killer B. She has completed 9 D-ranked missions, 12 C-ranked and 3 B-ranked. Taijutsu is very high. Ninjutsu is also very high and Genjutsu in non-existent. He finished with a bit of sweat running down his face. Everyone else gulped after Kabuto had finished reading the card. If someone like that was in the exams, how many more like or even stronger than her were there? They all had one similar thought in their minds: avoid the team from Kumo at all costs. Naruto felt someone looking at him. He looked around and spotted Yugito giving him a challenging smirk, her teammates also looking at him. He returned the smirk with one of his own and turned back around. Shut brats! A booming voice shouted from the door where everyone was supposed to be, in a voice belonging to man wearing a large black trench coat. He cleared his voice. My name is Aviki Morono, proctor of the first part of the Chunin exams. I want everyone to enter this room. You will each be randomly selected to seat on tables that will be numbered according to the number you receive as you enter. And I'm sure you've read this part 1,000 times already, so I'm just going to skip it. Pretty much everything happens the same way as in canon, except this time it is Hitomi who makes the loud speech about not giving up, with Akari backing her up. And Naruto is going to copy the answers from a person sitting in front of him, using his Sharingan to copy the strokes the person makes with his pencil as he wrote. Teammates stood in front of a huge steel gate, looking at the massive trees and plants inside. They all shuddered slightly when they heard a very loud ferocious howl coming from within the dark forest. Go! And with that, steel gates opened. Instantly they rushed into the forest. The exams were on the way. 1 day later with Team 8. I saw them heading here. Where are they? I don't see anyone. Shut, you idiots! They probably heard your voices and ran away. What is this? Ah! Their screams could be heard throughout the forest as monstrous, gigantic leeches dropped from the trees above them, devouring them all. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Like the jutsu implied, a large ball purely made out of fire sped towards the horde of leeches, burning all of them. That was easier than I had anticipated, Naruto commented, looking at the dead Chunin team. His teammates, who were both standing beside him, did not comment. They too agreed with him. So far they had encountered 4 teams and none of those teams had proved to be any challenge for them. Do you see anyone else close by, Hinata? Without muttering a single word or using any hand seals, Hinata's Byakugan flared to life. With her bloodline active, she could see for miles ahead, giving them an advantage over all the other teams. She gasped audibly, making her teammates look at her expectantly. I can see someone heading straight for us. They are very fast, she said with a hint of panic in her voice. What else do you see? This time it was Shino who asked, as his mind thinking of what could be making his teammate react this way. Their chakra, I've never seen anything like it. It's so dark, and her breath hitched. Her body completely froze. Hinata? Kukukukuku. A silky chuckle rang from everywhere around the team, making Sino and Naruto tense up in preparation. Hinata, though, visibly started shaking. Kukuku, what do we have here? A lone Chunin team. How cute! The same voice spoke up again. This time they could see and hear where it was coming from. They could see the shadow of a person slowly approaching them from deep within the forest. When the person finally stepped into the light, they all noticed it was a girl from the Hidden Grass Village, the same girl who had given the creepy proctor of the second phase of the Chunin exams her kunai back, with her tongue, the same girl they had all felt a bad feeling from, the person they had all hoped not to run into. She looked at them in the eyes, and at that very moment the world stopped moving. Naruto had felt his fair amount of fear in his life. Living with his mother and grandmother, he had seen a good portion of things that would stop many hearts, but nothing could ever compare to what he felt at that very moment. He could hear his heart pounding in his chest. His instincts, his body, his very soul was shouting for him to get away from the monster in front of him, to run with every ounce of his energy and never look back. He could see his death in many different ways, and none of them any less terrifying than the other. He tried to speak, but it felt as though an unbuildable weight had been placed on top of him, rooting to where he stood. What I this? I see, can't I move? Naruto looked at his teammates through the corner of his eye and saw that both of them were in a similar state. I have to do something. What do you want? he asked, drawing all his courage and willpower to utter that single sentence. The grass kunoichi smirked and gave them a predatory grin. I've come for one thing and one thing only, you. What could only be described as the biggest snake all three genins had ever seen rose from behind the kunoichi and, as though being controlled by her, slid past her, attacking the still frozen team. Team 8 could only watch helplessly as the snake approached them, too scared and frozen to do anything. Thinking quickly, Naruto grabbed a kunai from his pouch and without any hesitation stabbed himself in his right thigh. The pain from the stab shocked his entire body, overriding the fear. He grabbed both his teammates and jumped away, just in time to avoid the snake's massive jaws swallowing them whole. Using pain to remove your fear, impressive but still not enough. The grass nin mocked with another snake appearing from above the team, its mouth wide open. Fire style, fireball jutsu. The fire jutsu hit the giant snake head on, and to Naruto's surprise, instead of being burnt like he expected it to be, the snake disappeared in a smoke explosion. Shino. Hinata. Get out of here, I'll hold her off for you to get out of here. Both Shino and Hinata snapped their heads at those words, their fear momentarily forgotten. You can't fight that monster alone, she's too strong, Hinata pleaded. I agree with Hinata, she's too strong for you to fight alone. The only way you can hope to defeat her is if we all work together and fight as a team, Shino reasoned. Naruto looked at both of them and they both stared back, showing that they were not backing down. I suppose you're right, if we are going to fight then we fight as a team. Kukukaku, don't tell me you've given up already. I honestly had expected more from you, the grass said, appearing in front of them. Don't count us out yet, the battle has just started, Hinata responded back with confidence in her voice. The snake woman just smirked cruelly, showing her very sharp canines, her eyes lit up with glee. Unfortunately I have no interest with you two. My battle is with him. Faster than the three genins could blink, the grass kunoichi sent a powerful wind jutsu. Naruto with his Sharingan saw the attack coming and managed to jump out of the way. Unfortunately, even though she could see the attack coming, Hinata was not fast enough to avoid it, and neither was Shino. Shino. Hinata, Naruto shouted when he saw that his teammates had been caught in the attack, which sent both of them flying away. He wanted to run to them but knew the moment he turned his back against his opponent he would lose. So with great reluctance and anger he stayed. Now that those insects are out of the way I can finally see what I came all the way here to see, the grass kunoichi said, sounding amused by the whole situation. Naruto gritted his teeth, his Sharingan spinning madly. Who are you and what do you want, he asked through gritted teeth. Now that would be telling, wouldn't it? And for what I want, I thought I've made my intentions thus far clear. I want to test you. She rocketed towards Naruto with kunai already in her hand. Seeing this, Naruto blocked her attacks with his kunai. Test me? Naruto asked as he avoided her strikes, only to receive an amused smirk in response. Damn it, her strikes are too strong and fast. I'll have to create some distance between us and use long-range ninjutsu. With his plan in mind, Naruto tried creating some distance between them by jumping away, but the snake woman would not let him. Her attacks were powerful, relentless, and could see that he was rapidly losing as her speed and strength seemed to increase with each strike. Is that all you have got to offer? Perhaps I overestimated you. Maybe one of your sisters will prove to be more challenging, the snake taunted, and the effect was instantaneous. Naruto's blood started boiling, his attacks gaining more ferocity with anger. If there was one thing that he hated the most, one thing that really made his blood boil, it was someone threatening his family, especially his sisters, and with a battle cry he punched the snake girl with all his might, sending her flying. She stopped when she hit a large tree, sending a few splinters flying from where she had the tree. Not even giving the snake girl a chance to recover, Naruto's hands waved through hand seals fire style, dragon fire jutsu. Adding as much chakra as he could into the jutsu, 3 large dragon head fireballs the size of a house made from white fire launched at the girl. Upon contact, the dragon heads exploded in a fiery white-hot fire explosion. Naruto huffed. That will teach her to threaten my family, he panted slightly as he looked at the destruction caused by his jutsu. By adding thrice the amount of chakra needed for performing a fire jutsu and controlling the size of the jutsu so not to make it too large or explode in front of him, he had realized that instead of the normal yellow-orange flames, the flames were wide and stronger than the normal flames, making the jutsu very destructive. The only downside was that it drained a lot of chakra, but with his high affinity for fire and large chakra reserves he didn't waste or lose a large amount of chakra. He was about to go and check on his teammates when he had someone clapping hands. He turned around and saw a sight that froze him. The same girl whom he had killed just a moment ago was standing there, the skin of her face melting off, revealing a man with pale white skin, long black hair and yellow snake-like eyes. Very, very impressive, the man uploaded, clapping his hands. You have surpassed all my expectations, but now it's time we end this little battle of ours, don't you think so, Naruto-kun? He said, his mouth opened widely and from within it a green snake came out. The snake opened its mouth and a sword slowly started to come out from the snake's mouth. Naruto wanted to cry, honestly he did. He knew the person who he was fighting against was, anyone with half a brain could tell who it was, Orochimaru of the Sannin, S-ranked missing nin from Konoha. Of all people in the world he met today, it had to be him. Why were things like this always happening to him? Maybe he had done something a long time ago to piss Kami off, or maybe Kami just enjoyed putting him in impossible situations. Faster than he could react, Orochimaru was in front of him, his sword stabbing him in the stomach. He blinked and found himself standing on a few meters away from Orochimaru, and in his place was Shino. What? Kukaku, sacrificing yourself for your friends, how noble of you, but ultimately futile in the end. I will have my price. After all, the hunter will always find his prey. Orochimaru chuckled, removing the sword from Shino's stomach and turning around to face Naruto, with a gleeful look in his eyes. However, Naruto was not paying attention to him, his eyes were focused on Shino. He did not hear his other teammate shout out Shino's name, nor did he even see, watching as his best friend fall to his knees, couching his stomach and coughing up blood. His body was frozen as though stuck in trance, which it was. His mind was blank, refusing by all rights and logic that this was happening. Shino finally dropped to the ground. He looked at Naruto right in the eye and said one thing: run. He felt it: rage, anger, fear, sorrow, but most of all hatred. He felt a familiar burning sensation in his eyes, the same burning sensation he had felt when he saved his sisters a long time ago, but this time it was different. The burning sensation felt more powerful, more painful, like someone was pouring magma right in his naked eyes. Yes, use that anger, embrace it, don't hold back, Orochimaru said gleefully as he felt a large chakra spike from Naruto, chakra that felt cold and dark, darker than his own. Hearing Orochimaru's voice, the mocking voice of the man who had killed his best friend, the voice of the monster that had attacked his team, something inside of him snapped. And for the first time in his life, Naruto embraced his rage, his hatred. To be more definite, he let go. Chapter 10. He let go. Power, that was the only word for it. It rushed through his veins like boiling water. He felt stronger somehow, and his vision became even clearer. But Naruto was not paying attention to any of that, his mind too far lost in rage to realize all this. There was one thing he desired most, one thing that was ringing clearly and loudly in his anger-clouded mind: the death of the man who had killed his best friend, Orochimaru. Orochimaru could clearly see and feel Naruto's rage, and it excited him. The feel of bloodlust that Naruto was exiting was nothing short of amazing. Were he a lesser man, he would have started shacking under it. He licked his in preparation and excitement. So far he had not been disappointed, not in the very least. He couldn't believe that at such a young age Naruto was this strong. Granted, there were other before him who too were remarkably strong when they were young, Kakashi and Itachi being prime examples, but he had never seen such raw potential in one person, especially one so young. He could barely keep himself from just giving Naruto the curse seal and take his body right then and there, but he kept himself in check. Acting upon impulse would not benefit him in the long run. It never did. He would wait until Naruto's body was at its limit. When his power had reached its peak, then and only then would he strike. With Naruto's body he would become a force not to be reckoned with. The Sharingan would finally be his. Imagine all the jutsu he would learn, the secrets he would unravel. The world will bow down to his might. No one, not even that snort-nosed brat Itachi, would be able to stop him. Naruto's eyes shifted from the prone form of his dead best friend and settled to the monster that had killed him. He wanted to kill him so badly, he wanted to make him suffer so much till he begged for mercy. He wanted him to burn into nothingness. Something, a small voice barely audible from the cloud of rage and anguish in his mind, whispered to him. It was so silent he might have mistaken it for the wind. Normally one would question where such a voice came from. After all, it was not natural to just start hearing voices at the back of your mind. If you did, people would definitely question your mentality. But that rationality had long since been lost to him. Amaterasu, he felt a large drain in his chakra reserves, but he ignored it, his eyes glaring so hard on Orochimaru as though he would burn. Ironically, that's exactly what happened. Orochimaru never saw what hit him, or rather what burned him. One moment he was planning world domination with Naruto's body, and the next he felt the most painful burn he had ever experienced in his immortal life. Flames, black flames latched onto his body with the heat of 1,000 fire jutsu combined. He had never felt anything like it before. He tried extinguishing the flames by covering his body in wind chakra and pushing it out, but they did not extinguish, nor did they show any sign of even being put out. The black flames were now spreading to his face, the agonizing pain making him want to just plunge a kunai into his heart and end his suffering. But he did not dare do that. He was Orochimaru's ranked missing nin from Konoha. He did not get to where he was by giving up at the first signs of pain. He would have felt worse, but truthfully he had not. Nothing could ever compare to this. All the while Naruto was staring at the burning, screaming Orochimaru with a great amount of joy and excitement. That was what he wanted, to hear the man screaming in agony till he eventually dropped to the ground and burned into ashes. He felt something wet sliding down his face on his right cheek. Curiously he reached for whatever it was and rubbed it. His eyes narrowed in confusion when he saw blood on his hand. Was it his blood? He couldn't feel any wound on his head, nor could he remember getting one. The only thing he could feel was a stinging sensation from his right eye. He chucked to the back of his mind for later. Right now he had a snake to kill, or roast. Seeing as the flames were not going to burn out and were actually spreading, Orochimaru did something that would make a normal person turns green in disgust and vomit all their insides. His mouth opened widely and a pair of hands came out. The hands continued coming out until a head could be seen, a head belonging to an unharmed, slightly amused Orochimaru who proceeded to come out entirely from his mouth. A testament of how much a snake he truly was. "What a remarkable fire jutsu that you have there," he commented, looking at his now burnt body with the black flames still on it. "To think you were able to force me this far. Truly you are a prodigy of unparalleled talent that will soon belong to me." He licked his lips in anticipation. Seeing Orochimaru come out not the slightest injured pushed Naruto's rage to new heights. Without any regard as to whom he was facing, Naruto attacked like a barbaric animal. His attacks were wild, fast, powerful, but ultimately fruitless as they never reached their intended target. The amused smirk that Orochimaru had on his face as he easily dodged the wild attacks was not doing much to soothe his burning rage. Getting more frustrated as his attacks were being easily evaded, Naruto created some distance between them by jumping away. Whilst he was in midair, his hands were blurring through hand seals. Fire style, fireball jutsu. He breathed out a giant ball made of fire. Orochimaru made no move to avoid the attack. Instead he stood there rooted to the ground with an all too eager smile on his face. Fire style, Great Dragon Fire Jutsu. Naruto continued. Gathering more chakra, his hands he flashed through a few more hand seals. Fire style, Hellfire Clap. A wave of destructive fire flowed forth from around him, engulfing anything that was in its path, which fortunately for him Orochimaru was in. He panted loudly, sweat dropping from his forehead. His chakra reserves had considerably been drained from all the jutsu he had thus far used. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of clapping rang from where he was sure he had burned Orochimaru. The smoke around the area cleared, showing an unharmed, smirking Orochimaru. "Yes, show me your power." By now Naruto was shaking. "Why won't you die?" he whispered lowly. Orochimaru felt a chirka spike coming from him. "Why won't you just die?" What followed next was something Orochimaru would never forget. The air around him distorted in a spiral-like portal that was sucking him in. He tried fighting it, but it was too powerful. Eventually he managed to escape the powerful jutsu, but it cost him his right arm. For once since the fight started, Orochimaru was not amused. His right arm had been completely removed from its shoulder by Kami knows what jutsu that had been, and he couldn't regenerate it. He would have Kabuto attach it later on, but having your arm brutally removed from your person was not a desirable experience. It was time for him to claim his prize. He had seen more than enough of the boy's skill to pique his interest. That, and he could feel multiple chakra signatures headed his way. He could easily take care of them, but he couldn't risk having the Anbu know of his presence just yet. "I'm afraid as much as I enjoy testing you, it's time I end our little battle, Kokaku. But don't fret, my little test subject, I won't be leaving you without a parting gift." His smirk widened, his sharp snake-like fangs growing longer. Faster than Naruto could react, Orochimaru appeared in front of him, his fist buried deep into his gut. Normally an attack with such force and strength would make a person bulk over in a coughing fit. Normally. What happened however made everyone, even Orochimaru, gasp in surprise. Orochimaru's fist passed right through Naruto as though he was a ghost. Surprised by this, Orochimaru looked at Naruto, and for the first time he saw his yes, they were different from the normal three-tome Sharingan. And I honestly don't know how to describe his Mangekyo. Imagine that his eyes look similar to Madara's Mangekyo, the only difference being that the three-bladed wheel that looks like Itachi's is inside the inner circle. Orochimaru had a brief flashback of the time he had attempted to forcefully take Itachi's body. He would never forget the humiliating defeat he suffered from that boy. But what had drawn his attention was the weird but mesmerizing three-bladed pinwheel Sharingan that Itachi had. Those eyes, he deemed, were powerful enough to trap him in a genjutsu for 72 hours, and yet only 3 seconds had passed in the real world. He was sure that the black flames and the powerful vortex-like jutsu that Naruto had used earlier on were from his new awakened eyes. Those beautiful dangerous eyes, and to think his soon-to-be host had already awakened them. Truly he is a prodigy amongst prodigies. Alas, he really had to go now, or else he would risk being discovered. He reappeared again in front of Naruto. This time he managed to hit him on the back of his neck. Naruto immediately fell into his arm unconscious. Interesting, I managed to touch him this time, so it seems he can't keep that ability for long. Bringing the boy to his face, he opened his mouth and was about to bite him on his open neck when something hard hit him in the face, sending him flying a good distance away, crushing those several trees in the process. "Get away from my brother. A dark voice belonging to a girl snarled. Orochimaru stood up from where he had landed and looked at his attacker. It was a girl with long red hair, sharp large canine teeth with claws for nails. The girl, he noticed, had a red shirka cloak surrounding her and her form. On top of her head were two large ears made from the same red chakra, and lastly a tail was also forming behind her. The girl's was hunched over on all fours like a wild animal that was about to attack at any moment. Her teeth were gritting together, her eyes a deep menacing red with a single black slit in the middle. A large amount of ki was being released from the girl and all of it was being directed at him. Orochimaru scowled. Things were not going according to plan. He had hoped that by now he would have marked Naruto, but the boy had proved to be too interesting with every second that passed, thus the prolonged battle. And now the presence of his Jinchuriki sister, who was releasing a large amount of demonic chakra, would surely alert the Anbu and even worse, Minato. He felt 4 more chakra signatures approaching, one of which was then furthest, he recognized as his long-ago apprentice. He looked at the Jinchuriki, who was glaring at him, waiting for him to make a move, and at his unconscious target. He could always get him sometime later on, for now he had to make a hasty escape. The opportunity to gain the boy will come again. As fun as it would be to play around with you, I'm afraid it's time I leave. I will claim my prize later, Orochimaru said as he sunk into the ground. But Hitomi would not have it. She appeared in front of him with her clawed hand raised high. I'm not letting you get away, she shouted, bringing her hand down with the intent to save Orochimaru's head from the rest of his body. Orochimaru gave her a challenging smirk as she stroked him. Her eyes widened with shock and anger when he burst into rocks the moment she touched him. Damn it, she shouted, punching the ground. She had let him get away. Hitomi, Hikari shouted, bursting from the treetops. Earlier with Team 7. Man, this is boring. We know. We've been here for more than a day now and still haven't found a team yet. We know. I bet the others are having better luck than us. We know. Maybe we just... Damn it, Kiba, would you shut up already? Silence. I'm bored. That's it. Kiba snickered at the fuming Sakura, who was being held back from possibly killing him by Hikari and Hitomi, who also looked like they too wanted to do the same thing to him. After they had all settled down, or rather the 3 girls had calmed down, Team 7 had decided to take a short break. They had been walking for a few hours now and were getting tired, or in Sakura's case was about drop down in exhaustion. She, unlike her teammates and temporary teammate, was not from a ninja family or had any prior training before joining the academy. Kiba was from a clan that specialized in tracking and taijutsu. His mother was the clan head, so he defiantly had and still was being trained by his clan, so he had a larger than average amount of stamina. Hikari and Hitomi were both part Izumaki. That alone was enough to boost their stamina to unbelievable proportions. They were also the children of the Hokage and Kushina Namikaze, which meant that their training must have been more intense than Kiba's. And then there was Sakura, a girl from a civilian family with no previous record of any ninja in her family. The only training she got was from the limited time she was at the academy and a tad bit more from her lazy good-for-nothing perverted sensei. She barely ate, wanting to keep her body as fit as she could and not gain any weight. So whilst her stamina was higher than that of the average civilian compared to that of an ordinary Junon, it was pathetic. We have to come up with a plan, Hikari voiced out, getting a nod of agreement from everyone. So far their plans had for them to just go straight for the tower and hopefully encounter some teams along the way. Little good that had been, as they had not encountered even a single team, and Kiba and his dog had not even picked up a single scent of any team since the beginning of the exams. I agree with Hikari-chan. We can't keep going on like this, time is running out, Hitomi added. The team was silent after that, each trying to come up with the best course of action. How about we herd to the tower and wait in ambush for the other teams who are approaching it? They will be having both scrolls right, Kiba said, surprising everyone that he had actually thought of such a sound plan. I didn't even think he had enough brain capacity to know how to feed himself, let alone think of an actual plan, Sakura thought in surprise. He probably got the idea from Akamaru. Bustard, he's stealing the poor puppy spotlight, Hitomi fumed. That can't be Kiba, he must have hit head on something very hard. Unaware of his teammates' mental insults, Kiba mentally pat himself in the back for having come up with such a great plan. I think it's too dangerous, Hikari said finally, kicking Kiba down from his moment of glory. Kiba narrowed his eyes. Why? He felt his pride taking a heavy blow. Coming from a clan where their lives was mainly influenced by dogs, being the only male in their team, he felt like he was the alpha in their team. So when Hikari, a female, was questioning his order and he couldn't do anything about it, that was a huge blow to his pride. Hikari sighed for one. If you can think about such an idea, it is clearly obvious that other teams are thinking of the same thing, or already have. They all blinked at that reasoning. They had not thought about that. Catching on, Hitomi continued on where her sister had left off. So if we were to go there, we would either be ambushed ourselves or would never get the opportunity to do the same to other approaching teams because there will be too much competition. Exactly. That's why I think it's a bad idea, Hikari said cheerfully. Too cheerful for Kiba's liking. "Well then, what do you suggest we do then? We can't just sit around and do nothing," Kiba said with a scowl on his face. "I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything, dog breath. I'm just saying we need to come up with a better plan," Hikari retorted back. "Hey Kiba, what's wrong with your dog? It's shacking," Sakura said, cutting their argument, and sure enough there was Akamaru lying on the ground shaking like a leaf. Instantly Kiba was by his side, all his previous anger and frustration gone and now replaced with worry. "What's wrong, boy?" Kiba asked worriedly, taking his partner into his hands. He had never seen Akamaru act so scared before. The dog in question gave him a few barks and whines. "What did he say?" Hikari asked in concern. Kiba frowned. "He says he can smell something very bad, evil. It smells like snakes." Akamaru barked a few times again, this time hiding himself inside of Kiba's jacket. "Whatever the thing is, he says it's stopped moving and, gasp, it's very close to Team 8. Hikari, Hitomi and Sakura whipped their heads to face him so fast it made a snapping sound. "We have to help them," Hitomi and Hikari said at the same time. Kiba looked hesitant. He had never seen his partner act this scared before, not even in front of his mother, and that was saying something. Whatever was out there he did not want to face or even fight it. He trusted his dog with his life, and if he was telling him not to go near that thing, then he definitely did not want to go. But his friends/comrades were in trouble, and there is nothing more the Inuzuka clan valued more than comrades. Getting impatient with how long Kiba was taking to make a decision, Hitomi spoke up. "Look, if you don't want to help save them, then fine, we will do it on our own. Just point us at the direction where they are. We can't waste any more time." "No, I won't let you guys face whatever that thing is alone. They are my friends too, and there's nothing I won't do to save my friends." Even if he didn't know all the members of Team 8 all that well, they had been in the same class for more than 6 years. As far as he was concerned, they were distant friends. "Well then, what are you waiting for? Lead the way, dog breath," Sakura said. Kiba ignored the insult that was how his friends had always referred to him as. He didn't mind it anymore. After being called that name for so long, it had kind of grown on him. Jumping from tree to tree, Team 7 hastily made their way towards the area where a whimpering Akamaru was telling them Team 8 was. "How far are they?" Hikari asked with a hint of frustration but mostly worry in her voice. "Akamaru says they are not that far, 2 kilometers at most," Kiba responded back, looking down worriedly at Akamaru, who was now shacking worse as they got closer to Team 8. "What's making you act like this, boy?" They all stooped in their tracks when they felt something cold, dark. It was filled with so much hatred and anger that it almost made them jump from their skin. The feeling was followed by a loud female scream that brought them back from their temporary frozen state. What is that?" Sakura asked with wide eyes. "Trouble, come on, we have to hurry," Kiba shouted in midair, already jumping towards it. Hitomi and Hikari followed soon after. Sakura remained where she was, looking at her teammates as they disappeared into the forest. She wanted to go the opposite way, her body refusing to move ahead. A memory flashed through her mind. A memory of when she had been left alone on the bridge in Wave Country to guard their client as her teammates fought against the enemy. She remembered how hopeless she had felt at that time, the promise she had made to herself, the promise to better herself, the promise to never again be a burden to her teammates. "We will not back down, Chanaru!" Inner Sakura shouted with fire blazing in her eyes. "Hey guys, wait for me," Sakura shouted, following her teammate. As Team 7 approached their destination, they felt the overwhelming presence slowly start to drop. At their proximity, Hitomi and Hikari recognized the chakra, more precisely who it belonged to. Naruto? Mind you, they were by far not trackers, but they could always feel each other's presence when they were near enough each other. Maybe it was the bond that existed between the three of them as siblings, or maybe it was because they were so used to each other's presence that they could easily identify one another from afar. Whatever it was, it had always been there, and with it they could feel their brother's chakra presence depleting. "We have to hurry," Hikari said, her speed increasing. Then, without warning, the unsettling chakra that the two sisters had identified as belonging to their brother disappeared as though it was never there to begin with. Hitomi and Hikari felt their hearts freeze with worry and fear when the chakra disappeared. Their speeds drastically increased as fear overrode their minds. Their minds were so caught up in their fear and worry they realized that they were leaving their teammates behind. "Hey guys, slow down, we can't keep up," Kiba shouted a few meters from behind them. Unfortunately for him, his cries were ignored as the two sisters disappeared from his sight. Hitomi and Hikari were worried. Ever since the exams had started, both girls had felt something bad was going to happen, but they had ignored it and chalked it up as nervousness. But now, feeling their brother's chakra filled with rage, anger and pain, their worry had reached new heights. Naruto, from the time he was a child till now, had rarely ever been angry. Sure, on some occasions he had fumed, like that time the two of them had hidden his supply of Pocky, but then he would always quickly calm down and retreat to his normal cool, collected self. But just a second ago they had felt so much rage, anger and hatred coming from him that if they didn't know their brother's chakra sense, they would have confused it with some else's entirely. For their brother to be feeling such strong, dark emotions was something worrisome. More worrisome even was for his chakra to suddenly disappear like it did. They were afraid to think of what that meant. Unknown to Hitomi, her high emotional state was making her unconsciously draw on a certain power, a power that was sealed inside of her from birth. She didn't notice this, but her nails had sharpened and turned into claws, her hair had become a shade deeper and gained a few spikes in it, her eyes were now red with a single black slit in each eye. But the most frightening thing about her appearance was the babbling red chakra forming around her. She ignored the startled scream her Hikari had given off when she saw her new appearance. Her speed skyrocketed so much that she blasted off the tree branch she landed on, and leaving her sister and the rest of Team 7 in her dust, she was going to save her brother. He had saved them once, now it was her turn. When she arrived to where her brother was, what she saw made her blood boil. A man with pale white skin, golden snake-like eyes with sharp fangs, and one hand was holding the unconscious form of her brother in his single hand. Just when the man was about to bite or do whatever it was he wanted to do to Naruto, she attacked. Using as much strength as she could muster, she punched the man right on his jaw, sending him hurling away from the force of the punch. "Get away from my brother," she growled out, baring her sharp canine teeth in an act of animalistic intimidation. The man who had attacked her brother came out from the wreckage of trees she had punched him through, walking in a very slow pace. The only sign to show that she had attacked him was a red mark on his cheek, which was rapidly healing, turning his skin back into its normal pale white. Snake-like golden yellow eyes met deep bloodthirsty red, each glaring at each other. The snake-like man gave her a smirk and started sinking into the ground. "As fun as it would be to play around with you, I'm afraid it's time I leave. I will claim my prize later." His eyes looked at Naruto as he said those parting words. Hearing the man claim her brother as his prize and seeing that he was about to escape, Hitomi acted. In a burst of unnatural speed she disappeared from where she was crouched, and reappeared in front of him with her clawed hand raised high. "I'm not letting you get away," she shouted, ready to cleave his head off from his shoulders. The snake man gave her a cocky smile as she tore through his head with her claws. Instead of blood and open flesh that she had expected, the man dissolved into rocks and dust when she hit him. "Damn it!" she shouted, punching the ground in frustration and anger when she saw that he had escaped. Seconds later Hikari came rushing at her, having caught up. "Hitomi!" Hikari shouted in startled surprise and a small amount fear. "I let him get away," Hitomi shouted in anger, punching the ground again, spiderweb-like crack marks appearing on the ground as she did so. "Yes, but you managed to save Naruto. Isn't that more important?" Hikari retorted back, pointing at Naruto. "Now calm down. Anger is not to help us in this situation." Hitomi looked like she wanted to say something back, but the rational part of her mind kicked in. Getting angry and frustrated in this situation would only make things worse. For the first time she finally realized how far into a rage she had lost herself. Her eyes widened in shock and fear when she saw her change appearance. Her mother had warned her about letting her emotions getting the best of her, how the Kyuubi would act upon those emotions and drive her into a mindless beast that would kill anyone in sight, friend or foe, with its power. Seeing her sister's distraught state, Hikari tried to shake her out of it by holding her hand, but the moment her hands touched the cloak of red chakra burned her, she quickly withdrew it with a small hiss of pain. "Hitomi! Hitomi!" she shouted, seeing as touching her was not an option. Hitomi looked at her, her eyes filled with bloodlust, anger, confusion and distraught. "You have to calm down. Remember what Kachan said? The chakra reacts with your emotions." Hitomi nodded her head slightly and took a small calming breath. She closed her eyes and cleared the raging tides of emotions in her mind. She could feel the dark, foul chakra surrounding her start to recede back into the seal until it was all gone. The last thing she heard before she opened her again was a deep dark growl coming from somewhere in the back of her mind. When she opened her eyes she saw the relieved look on Hikari's face. She looked around and saw that the area around them was covered in burnt trees and ashes from burnt trees and grass. All in all, it looked like a fire tornado had gone through the area. "What happened here?" Hitomi asked in surprise and shock. "I think Naruto and whoever that man was did this," Hikari responded with the same amount of surprise on her face as her sister. "Wow, they must have gone all out. Come on, we have to get Naruto-kun out of here and find his teammates. I don't see them anywhere," Hitomi said, walking towards her brother. A little while later the other two members of Team 7 finally arrived to the battle site. The moment they saw the destruction in the area, their faces did the exact replica of a gaping fish. "What the heck happened here?" Kiba asked. "Naruto-kun and someone fought here. Judging by the way this area looks, he must have gone all out," Hikari said, following Hitomi to where her brother lay, her teammates following behind. "How is he?" Sakura asked from behind, looking at the unconscious Naruto. From where she stood she could see how badly injured he looked. His clothes were torn in many places, she could see a few cuts on his hands and chest, but the most noticeable injury though was the dried blood trail coming from both his eyes. "Do you think they?" She trailed off, not wanting to finish her sentence. She knew that everyone knew exactly what she wanted to say. It wasn't uncommon for people with dujutsu to have their eyes stolen and implanted into another person or to study the dujutsu. That was why many clans with dujutsu had come up with ways to prevent that from happening. A perfect example was the Hyuga clan. They put a seals on the branch member of their clan. The seal acts as both a sign to show that the person is from the branch part of the clan and also protects their eyes. Should the person with the seal die, their eyes would be sealed forever, rendering them unusable to anyone who tries to steal them. Hikari and Hitomi refused to answer her question, or rather they refused to acknowledge that she had asked the question in the first place. "Where is Kiba?" Hikari asked, changing the subject. Sakura noticed but made no move to comment. "He went looking for Hinata and Shino," Sakura responded, looking around for any signs of her male teammate. A second later she spotted two figures headed towards them. Upon closer inspection she noticed that one of them was carrying something that looked a lot like a person. "I think that's them over there," she said, pointing at the approaching people. "Naruto," Hinata said in panic when she saw the state he was in and rushed towards him. "Don't worry about him, he's just unconscious. I think he's suffering from chakra exhaustion," Hikari explained, putting Hinata's mind at ease. Hinata nodded her head before she saw something that made her heart skip a beat. What happened to his eyes?" she asked, her voice quavering. She didn't want to think of the meaning behind the trail of blood coming from his eyes. We don't know," Hitomi answered her. An uncomfortable silence settled in. "What's wrong with Shino?" Sakura asked suddenly, breaking the silence, when she saw him being carried by Kiba. "He switched positions with Naruto-kun when he was about to be stabbed and took the hit for him," Hinata explained sadly. Both her teammates had been injured and she couldn't do anything to help them. When the snake Kanoiki had separated them, two giant snakes had attacked them. It was a long drawn-out battle, but they had managed to kill the snakes and move to help their teammate. When the two of them had arrived back at the battle site, they watched in horror as Naruto got stabbed in the stomach. Somehow Shino had managed to substitute places with Naruto and had taken the hit instead. After that, Naruto had lost control and attacked the snake Kanoiki with everything he had. Seeing as she was no help whatsoever, Hinata made herself useful and took the injured Shino to safety, away from the raging battle between Naruto and the snake Kanoiki. "Come on, we have to find some place to hide so these two can rest and recover," Hikari said seriously. After almost an hour of searching, the group of Genins finally found a cave for them to rest and recover in. It was a large hollow hole underneath the root of a very large tree. Settling in, the team proceeded to place the two wounded boys in the cave and took rotating guard positions. Kiba took the first watch, then Hikari followed, then Hitomi, then Sakura, and finally Hinata. The following day, "Is that them?" a female voice asked. "Yes, I can see him lying in that cave over there," a male gruff voice responded back. "What are we waiting for then? Let's go get this bastard and be on our way." This time it was a cocky male voice who spoke. Before the other two could do or stop him, the last member of the team jumped from their hiding spot and into the open clearing, where Hikari, Sakura and Hitomi were situated. "Hey you!" the foreigner suddenly shouted, getting the attention of the three girls. "Wake the Namikaze kid, I have something important to discuss with him," he said, giving them a cruel, arrogant smirk. At the mention of her brother, Hikari took a step forward. "If you want to get to him, you're going to have to go through me first," she said, glaring at the boy, whom she noticed had spiky, black hair and dark eyes. He was wearing a beige shirt with 2 stripes and 3 prints of the kanji for death down the front. The boy gave her a smirk with pleasure, decapitating airwaves. He brought his arms forward, which had 2 holes in his hands, and sent forth a combination of air pressure and sound that tore through the small clearing and hit the unsuspecting Hikari head-on. Her sister and teammate managed to dodge the attack by jumping out of the way. Hikari managed to hold her ground and not sent flying away by holding onto the ground with chakra, though she received several cuts from it. Fang passing fang. A loud shout was all the warning the sound Jinan got before 2 black spinning tornadoes appeared on top of him. He raised his hands to protect himself, but to his surprise the attack never hit him. Opening his eyes, he saw the 2 tornadoes being held by his teammate, Dosu, in each hand. "Ha!" Dosu shouted, pushing his bandaged hands forward, sending the attacks flying away. "You're too careless, Zaku, you should pay more attention to your surroundings," Dosu said, giving Zaku a resinous look with his lone, uncovered eye. Zaku grumbled something lowly and turned to look at his would-be attacker. He saw a rather animalistic-looking boy with spiky brown hair and purple canine markings on his cheeks. Besides the boy, he could see a small white puppy growling at both him and Dosu. "I could have taken care of them on my own, Dosu. Now back off," Zaku shouted back. Dosu looked at him with a narrowed eye. "I won't interfere with your battle as long as you don't mess up." "Good, I don't plan on." He turned to look at the Genins. "Hey you brats, wake up the Namikaze kid, I came all the way to fight him. We won't let you get to him, Hitomi shouted in defiance, taking a defense stance. Well, that's too bad, because I'm waking him up right now, decapitating airwaves. Naruto slowly opened his eyes to the sounds of shouting and some other loud noise he couldn't identify. He slowly stood up, staggering as he did so. He blinked a few times to clear his blurry vision and looked around his surroundings. The first thing he noticed was that he was in what looked to be a small cave. Hearing more shouting, he walked towards the exit and cringed when the bright light assaulted his eyes. When his eyes adjusted to the bright light, he saw the entire members from Team 7, including Hitomi, facing a team from the Hidden Sound Village. He didn't pay much attention to the enemy team. His eyes locked onto Hikari, whose clothes were torn in multiple places and he could see the many bleeding cuts on her body. Looking directly at Hikari, "Who did that to you?" he asked coldly, his Sharingan active, his voice cut through the small clearing, halting everyone in their tracks. A boy from the Sound Village with black hair and dark eyes. He was wearing a beige shirt with 2 black stripes. The boy took a confident step forward. "I did it, and now it's time to complete my mission." He brought his arms forward, decapitating airwaves. "Naruto!" All Hijinon shouted, trying to warn him, but it was all for naught. A vortex of supersonic air blast come from the soles of his hands and hit Naruto straight on. The Junon from Konoha could only watch helplessly as their comrade/friend/brother get hit and possibly killed by the attack. Zaku grinned happily when he saw that his attack had killed the red-haired boy. Their leader was definitely going to reward them for completing their mission so effortlessly. "Come on, Kin. Dosu, let's kill the rest of these punks and get over with this fucking exa." Amaterasu, a cold voice, cut him off, and what followed next was something he would forever remember in his entire life. Pain. There was no other word to describe it. 1 minute he was boasting about his complete mission and fantasizing about the reward he was going to get, and the next, he felt pain. Blinding, unconditional pain. He could feel it everywhere, in his legs, his hands, chest, back, everywhere. He dropped to the ground and started rolling in an attempt to soothe it, but nothing worked. Everyone gathered around were confused. Zaku had been speaking loudly, giving orders to his teammates after killing Naruto, but then someone said Amaterasu and Zaku had dropped to the ground, screaming his lungs out in pain as black flames covered him. "You should always make sure your enemy is dead before you start celebrating," the same cold voice spoke again. They all looked at the person to whom the voice belonged to, and to their shock, there stood Naruto with a cold, angry look on his face. There was not even a single scratch on him aside from the ones that he already had. Blood was leaking from both his eyes, which were not the Sharingan anymore but a weird pattern instead. Realizing who had created the black flames, Hikari tried to stop him. "Naruto, stop it. Please." Hikari pleaded. Naruto blinked, ignoring the stinging sensation in his eyes. Truthfully, he would have loved nothing more than to burn the pesky brat who had dared harm his sister, but Hikari's horrified look and pleading stopped him. He willed the flames to burn out, and just like that the flames disappeared from the screaming, now quivering, Zaku. "Take your teammate and get out of here," Naruto said coldly. The 2 teammates complied and took Zaku, who had several third-degree burn wounds, into their arms. Before they left, Dosu stepped forward and bowed down. "Thank you for sparing us, but know this: I will fight you, and when I do, I'm going to kill you." With it, he took Zaku's other free hand and the 3 of them vanished into the forest. Behind him he left an earth scroll on the ground, a scroll which Kiba quickly snapped. The moment they were out of sight, Naruto dropped to his knees, panting hard. Instantly his sisters were by his side, helping him stand up again. "Idiot, you shouldn't use flashy jutsu when you're suffering from chakra exhaustion," Hitomi reprimanded him, shaking her head. "Dude, that was awesome. What was that jutsu you used anyway, and how did you come out of that jutsu without getting hurt?" Kiba said with stars in his eyes. Naruto could feel everyone's gaze on him as they were all expecting him to answer. He inwardly sighed. "I don't know," he answered truthfully. He could feel their disappointment at his answer, but he was telling the truth. He honestly didn't know. "Hey Naruto, what's wrong with your eyes and why are they bleeding?" Hitomi asked worriedly, taking a white cloth from her pocket and wiping the blood away. Naruto blinked at the sight of the bloodied cloth. "My eyes?" he asked in confusion. Aside from a small stinging sensation, he couldn't feel anything wrong with them. "Yeah, there is weird patterns in them. Here, take a look," Sakura said, taking a small hand mirror from her pouch and giving it to him. Everyone gave her an odd look. "What? Did you bring a mirror to the exams?" Sakura's cheeks reddened. "Well, I wanted to keep my hair straight." She looked at Naruto, and when she noticed that he was looking at her, she quickly averted her gaze, the blush on her face increasing. Everyone's sweat dropped at her reasoning. Taking the mirror from the blushing Sakura, Naruto looked at it and almost jumped in surprise at what he saw. He stopped channeling chakra into his eyes and watched as they turned from the weird new design to the normal 3-tome Sharingan and finally to his crystal blue. What was that? He wondered. Another stage of the Sharingan? Maybe that was why I was able to use those jutsu, Amaterasu and Kamue. Are there other abilities that... Naruto? A startled shout brought him back from his deepening thoughts. What? he asked looking at Hitomi who had called him. "Are you okay? You were silent all of a sudden," she said looking at him worriedly. Naruto gave her a small smile. "Yeah, I'm fine, I was just thinking about something, that's all." She held her gaze for a moment longer before she nodded her head. "Okay, if you're sure." Naruto blinked, his memories from his previous battle rushing to him. "Shino, Hinata," he whispered out, but Hikari and Hitomi heard him. "Don't worry about them, we found both of them alongside with you." Hinata was not badly injured, only a few scrapes here and there, nothing too serious. "And Shino?" She trailed off looking at the cave. "What about Shino?" Naruto asked worriedly. Sakura was the one to answer him. "Shino was really wounded. He had a large hole in his abdomen. He was bleeding heavily and was unconscious. We managed to cover the wound with bandages. He's sleeping right now in that cave," she said looking at the cave. Naruto inwardly sighed in relief. He looked around the small clearing they were in and couldn't find Hinata anywhere. "Where is Hinata?" Hikari raised an eyebrow. "She's in the cave. Didn't you see her when you woke up?" Naruto blinked. Now that he thought about it, he did hear a small gasp when he woke up, but the gasp was so silent that he thought it was the wind, so he had ignored it completely. He looked back at the cave his sisters let him go, seeing as he could now support himself. He walked towards the cave and upon entering it he saw Hinata kneeling on the ground in front of a sleeping Shino. When he stepped inside, she looked up at him. Her eyes lit up with relief, and faster than a bolt of lightning she bolted from where she was, appeared in front of Naruto, hugging him with all her might. Naruto almost cried out when he heard one of his ribs snap. "Kemi, her hug is more painful than my Kachan's." Hinata, why you can let go now," he squeaked out. When she realized what she was doing, she instantly let go of him as if she was touching fire. "Jigomen. IW was just. Her eyes rolled to the back of her head and she dropped to the ground unconscious." Naruto blinked, not sure what to do or what exactly had happened. "Well, that's a first," he said lowly, rubbing his bruised ribs. He kneeled down in front of Shino. He looked at the bandage around his abdomen and slowly undid it. "Hey, what are you doing?" Kiba asked from behind him. Naruto continued undoing the bandages. "I'm going to heal him, and for that I need to see the wound." He finally undid the last of the bandages and held back a flinch when he saw the large cut from the blade. He closed his eyes to calm himself down. He could feel his depleted chakra reserve slowly being channeled into the palms of his hands. He could feel it as it was being converted to medic chakra. When he opened his eyes again, he smiled lightly when he saw his hands glowing green. Right before their eyes, all the members of Team 7 watched in awe as the wound on Shino start to close, making SPHHH sound like steaming water as the wound closed up until all that remained was a pink line on the otherwise clean white skin. "What was that?" Sakura asked. "It's called medical jutsu. By converting your chakra into healing chakra you can heal almost any injuries. I'm not a fully trained medic, nor do I want to be, but I know a few medic jutsu that my grandmother taught me," Naruto said, wiping a bit of sweat from his forehead. "Can anyone learn it?" "Only those with perfect chakra control can learn to use it." Naruto saw the world around him start to spin. A second later he closed his eyes and dropped to the ground. Sakura pouted lightly at being denied the chance to know about the interesting branch of ninjutsu she had just seen. Hikari looked her sleeping brother and his two other teammates who were also sleeping and sighed. I'm tempted to kick him in the chest for being an idiot. Honestly, he just woke up from an intense battle suffering from chakra exhaustion and the first thing he does is use a jutsu. Would it have killed him to wait a few more hours before he healed Shino?" "What should we do now?" Kiba asked. For what seemed like the 100th time that day, Hikari sighed. "What else can we do? Look after them and wait till they wake up." The other members of Team 7 nodded their heads. Kiba walked out of the cave with Akamaru following behind him. "Me and Akamaru will go hunting for some food and firewood." Not even waiting for a response, he walked out. "Wait, you should go with some," one Sakura hummed when she saw that he was already gone. "Save your breath, I doubt he will come back anyways," Hikari said, sitting on the ground next to her brother. "Boys," Hitomi added, sitting next to Hikari. They were silent for a while, staring at each other. Well, Hitomi and Hikari were. Sakura was. "Well, you know your brother is very cute," Sakura said with a dreamy expression on her face, looking at the sleeping red-haired boy. "I said that out loud, didn't I?" The following morning, after Sakura's little confession about Naruto, Hitomi and Hikari had made sure to keep a close eye on the girl. Not that they didn't trust her or anything, rather they were just taking necessary precautions to ensure that their brother maintained his innocence by the end of the exams, or at least until he was back to full strength and able to protect himself again. Naruto woke up to the smell of something being cooked. It smelled like chicken mixed with hot noodles. He recognized the smell from years of waking up to the same aroma in their house. Ramen, he thought with a bit of distaste. He couldn't understand why his family were so obsessed with that salty broth of fats and noodles. Now if it was Poki that he could understand. He slowly opened his eyes and looked around the cave he was sleeping in, and sure enough there were Hitomi and Hikari scoffing down bowl after bowl of ramen. Figures they brought ramen on a survival mission. "Morning, Naruto-kun," Hitomi greeted him first, though the greeting was ruined by the noodles that were in her mouth and some hanging of her lips. "Morning, Hitomi-chan." "Hikari-chan," he greeted back. grimacing at the big flashy smile he got in return, smiles which were covered in half-chewed noodles. "You're doing that on purpose, aren't you?" he asked with a bit of disgust in his voice. The two girls gave him an innocent look. "We don't know what you're talking about, Naruto-kun." He gave them a deadpan stare. "Sure you don't." He looked around the cave and saw that they were the only ones in the cave. Not even Shino was in the cave. "Where's everyone?" "They are all waiting for you to wake up outside," Hikari answered him. "And Shino?" Naruto asked. He wasn't sure how well Shino had recovered after he had healed him, but he was sure that he wasn't supposed to up and moving around so soon after being healed from what was possibly a fatal wound. "He woke up about an hour ago. I think he said something about finding a new species or something to add to his hive and then walked out of the cave." "Your friend is very weird, Naruto," Hikari said with a small pout. "Just because you do not understand something or someone doesn't mean they are weird. It merely means that you view them differently, just like they view you in a different way. The correct term to describe them is different, not weird," Naruto said, running his hand in his hair. He stood up and made his way out of the cave, leaving his bewildered sisters to stare at his retreating form. "What was that about?" Hitomi asked finally. "I think I hurt his feelings when I called Shino weird," Hikari responded with a frown on her face. Walking out of the cave, Naruto was greeted to the sight of Kiba running around a small clearing with Akamaru chasing him. Sakura was seated on the ground under a tree chatting with Hinata, who was picking up a few herbs that were growing around the tree, and a bit far off he could see Shino kneeling on the ground staring intensely to a leaf. "Probably found a new species of insects or something," Naruto with a shrug. Upon noticing Naruto, Kiba stopped playing with Akamaru and walked towards him. "Finally you're awake," he said, approaching him with a confident smirk. "Tired of your beauty sleep already?" he joked, laughing at his own joke at the end. "Cut it out, Kiba." "Good morning, Naruto-kun," Sakura said, appearing behind Kiba with Hinata in tow. "Good morning, Naruto-kun," Hinata greeted softly, hiding the small blush she had in the sleeves of her long jacket. Naruto gave them a small nod. "Good morning, Hinata-chan, Sakura-san, Kiba, rough, sorry I didn't see you there." "Good morning to you too, Akamaru," Naruto greeted back. "I see you've awoken," Shino said from behind Kiba. Said boy jumped in fright. Don't do sneak up people like that. You could have given me a heart attack," Kiba shouted, holding his chest as his heart pounded restlessly from fright. Shino merely gave him a blank stare. "My apologies, I didn't think one could sneak up on any Nezuka. After all, you do pride yourselves at being excellent trackers." Kiba grumbled something under his breath that no one heard. "Well, you just surprised me, that's all." "You shouldn't be moving so soon," Naruto said, looking directly at Shino. Shino gave him a small nod in acknowledgement. "I feel well enough to move, though not all my strength has returned." Naruto nodded at that. "Be for speaking, we should get to the tower soon or else we risk being disqualified." Everyone nodded their heads at what he said. 4 days had already passed since the exams had started, and they only had a few more hours before time was up. "Do you guys have your 2 scrolls already?" Sakura asked Team 8. Her own team got their final scroll yesterday from the sound team that attacked them the previous day, and they had found Team 8 only a day after the exams had started, and since then they hadn't had time to find any other teams to take the scrolls from. She doubted that they had managed to get any scrolls in the one day after the exams had started. In response to her question, Naruto gave Sakura a smug smile, a smile that both Hinata and Shino had on their faces. He put his hands in a release seal. "Kai," he said lowly. A small explosion on white smoke appeared on the ground in front of him. When the smoke cleared, on the ground lay 5 scrolls. 3 had heaven writing on them and the other 2 had earth written on them. All the members of Team 7's jaws hit the ground. How did you get so many?" Sakura asked with wide eyes. Naruto gave them all a small grin. "We are awesome that way," he said, looking at the gawking Team 7. "Enough showing off. We have to move already, like you said. We don't have much time left before the exams start," Hitomi said with arms crossed. Everyone could see the slight twinge of jealousy in her eyes. "Hitomi-chan is right, we have to get moving if we want to pass the second part of these exams," Hikari added. "I think we should stick together, that way we are less likely to get attacked by other remaining teams," Sakura spoke up, hiding the fact that she was afraid of going into the forest with her team alone. "Besides safety in numbers, right?" "Hold up, I might have a better form of transportation that will save us both time and energy," Naruto suddenly said, drawing everyone's attention. "You do? What is it?" Hikari asked curiously. Naruto gave her a nod. "Give me some space, I hope this works," he said the last part lowly to himself. Everyone took a wary step backwards, away from him. He closed his eyes in concentration. "Only half my chakra reserves have recovered, that's more than enough." He bit his thumb, drawing some blood, and his hands flashed through a few hand seal, summoning jutsu. He shouted, slamming his hands on the ground. A complex seal array appeared under his hands, and a second later a giant explosion of white smoke covered the entire clearing, blanketing it in thick blinding white smoke. A loud screech, the likes of which the group of genins had never heard before, tore through the clearing, shaking the very earth itself. A strong gust of wind blew all the smoke away, revealing two very large set of bird legs with razor-sharp talons. Attached to the legs was a massive eagle. The eagle was dark brown, with lighter golden-brown plumage at its nape. The tail feathers was a beautiful white that seemed to glow in the sunlight. The same white color was also on the wings. Its eyes were golden with a black slit in the middle. Around the eyes were what looked like black light golden rings. The last most peculiar about the giant eagle was a red cloth-like bandana, tied around its neck, with the word Queen written in gold. The eagle, easily towering over all the trees, looked down directly at Naruto. It lowered its massive head slightly and looked at Naruto as though seizing him up. After what seemed like an eternity, the eagle finally spoke. "You're our new summoner." Its voice was loud, yet strangely it had a soft feminine sound to it. "We've been waiting for a new summoner for many years now, and now we finally have one." It paused there and looked at him from head to toe, making him feel uneasy. At that moment Naruto was tempted to activate his Sharingan, but he refrained from doing so. He did not want to appear as hostile or intimidated. First impressions are always the most important after all. "Greetings, young hatchling. My name is Aras, Queen of the Eagle Summon Clan and Boss Summon. I welcome you as our new summoner, Namikaze Naruto, and I am deeply honored that you'll have me as your summoner," Naruto said, bowing his head in respect. The eagle gave him something akin to nod and spoke. "Maelstrom, a strong name for a strong summon. Yes, from now henceforth Namikaze Naruto shall have the Eagle Clan at your aid. What is it that you need help with?" Naruto almost pinched himself to see if this was a dream. He had thought that he would have to do some form of test to see if he was worthy or something, but instead it had been so easy it was almost unreal. "Aras-sama, I humbly ask that you take us to a tower in the middle of this forest," Naruto asked, bowing his head. His friends, who were all frozen in shock and awe, broke from their frozen state and bowed with him. "It shall be done. Climb on and hang on tight," Aras instructed, bending down to allow them to climb on her back. The Genins climbed on and held on by flowing chakra to the sole of their feet. Seeing as everyone was settled in, Aras spread her massive, beautiful, white wings and took off the ground with one flap of her wings. "Whoa!" Hikari, Hitomi, Sakura and Kiba screamed as they took off the ground at blinding speeds. "Hold on tight, I can see the tower," Aras warned. Angles have a far superior vision than humans, so she could easily see the tower even if it was 30 kilometers away. She hovered in the air for a moment longer before she took off towards the tower at speeds that made the giant bird look a small dark blur to the ground observer. Almost half an hour later Aras started to slow down until finally she stopped and lowered to the ground. "We have arrived," she said, and sure enough there was the tower a few feet away from them. After getting off Aras, the group of Genin proceeded to show their gratitude to Aras for the very vast transportation they had just received. "Thank you, Aras-sama," they chorused, bowing their heads. Aras gave them a nod and disappeared in a giant smoke explosion. After she had gone, everyone was silent. All their eyes turned to look at the person who could all the questions they had. "Naruto, dude. That?" Kiba was the first to ask. "An eagle summoned," Naruto replied coolly. "But how did you?" Hinata stuttered. "How did summon it?" Shino pressed. "I signed a contract." Sigh. "Come on everyone, it's obvious that we won't get any answers from Naruto-kun right now. We can ask him later. Right now we have an exam to finish," Hikari said, giving Naruto a look that said, "You'll tell eventually, like it or not." The same look that Hitomi and surprisingly Shino and Hinata were giving him. "My life is never easy, is it?" That's the end, guys. If you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a comment. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.